G'day. How you doing? I'm Danny D. Heck. I don't really know how to start this one off today. Normally I prepare myself an introduction and then I read it. But I'm going to freewheel my introduction because it's a bit different. Woke up this morning, first thing I do is I wake up and I say hello to the beautiful person laying beside me. I don't really know how to start this one off today. How did you sleep? Normally I often say. No, I don't. I grab my cell phone and I start going through my messages. And I thought, oh, I've got an appointment with a lady who was struggling to make a time with me so we could have a conversation. I read through the message that she left me and she said that she is being diagnosed with a sickness which is terminal. She had paid $125 to actually talk to me in an express chat, which was really nice. She wanted to pay because she valued my time. She's seen the research I've done in the software Pakistani houses. And that was nice. So when you do pay, I do prepare as much as I can. I spend a lot of time reading through the documentation to see what she wants to talk to me about. She's been scammed, and sad story, sharing her story with, set up a charity. The charity had done fundraising to get money so that she could tell her story and share other people's story who have the same sickness that she has. Amazing story. I've got a copy of the book, in fact, right in front of me. And then she searched the internet, found software, what I call the Pakistani software houses. Company registered in Texas, and they've been stringing her along. She's out of pocket about $37,000, so much, all from the charity money. And then, so I really can make a difference with this lady. I can actually do an investigation. She's given me some intel that's amazing. So when somebody rings me, normally what I do is I, g'day Nev, nice to see you in the chat room. I record the conversation because I'm dyslexic and I just can't remember stuff when people tell me. Sometimes it has its advantages and sometimes it doesn't. But people don't know I record them, but I just do it because I document everything I do. And I use some amazing technology. So today I thought I would look for software which enabled me to convert MP3 conversations into text. So I found this software here, and it allows me to build a mind map, give me a summary of what we discussed, and I'm pretty sure we will be okay to play some of this, but let's just give you an idea what I've got. This is not incriminating the lady at all, but I've renamed her to Mickey Mouse. But this is what I'd get a normal conversation. We're just going to listen to, about 15 seconds of this.
I talked to him and he inspired me. The doctors, after I was diagnosed, they said, get your affairs in order. And I honestly thought I would be dead in a year.
So Mickey Mouse is the lady that's talking. You can't quite see this. And then you've got me going, whoa, Mickey Mouse talks again. Whoa. So this whole transcript here is brilliant for me. And then I get down to 15 minutes in and it says that I need to pay to use the software. And it's $60 when I logged in. And I'm sitting here thinking, what plan can I use? So I signed up for a $10 a month plan, which enables me to get about 1,200 minutes worth of text. And I'm thinking, oh, amazing what technology we've got right now. So then I'm thinking, well, why don't I see if I can somehow become an affiliate of this program? So here's the prices here. So free, you can get 15 minutes worth of free basics. Now, I'll be uploading videos into there and getting the transcripts out of them. And then it helps me put all that information in ChatGPT. And before I know it, I actually get an amazing knowledge base when I'm doing investigations. But anyway, fortunately enough, they did have an affiliate program. So this program looks like something that would really help me in my research, but I'm sitting here thinking I can't afford to spend money. I can't afford to sign up for another subscription and the like, So I'm not asking for monies, but there's a method to my story. So I come to my utilities, and now if you go to my utilities, you can go to unscribe down the bottom here. You click on that, and it's an affiliate link. Now, the scammers will look at it and go, oh, I see what Danny's doing. He's making money. The reality is that I'll be lucky to have one person actually signs up. And if they do sign up, then I'll get $3 a month off my subscription. And that's cool. And that's what I'm saying. Technology is amazing. You can see the benefit of me using this software. I can now put a conversation into this database. I can separate my voice from their voice because it listens to the difference. And I don't have to confuse ChatGPT when I just simply copy that whole conversation. So that's absolutely brilliant. So I'm really, really happy about that. So I woke up this morning, I'm going through my phone, and I see that my Buy Me a Cup of Coffee fund says that this month's earning is $580. And I'm going, 580? And then I go down here and I see there's an individual, which I don't even know from a bar of soap. And this is actually quite hard for me to actually say because I'm just about to feel like crying. But somebody's just donated me 100 cups of coffee. I don't even know who this person is. And it's public. They've publicised their name. I get other people who donate to me called someone, $15. And then Tom here has donated $50. Oh, and also subscribed as being a monthly thing. So somebody's just thrown me $500. And what did they say? They said, I've forgotten what they said, but they just posted 2 words. They said, you rock. But that money there will be going towards my my fund. So at the moment, if you go to my website, you click on support me, you go to Ko-Fi, and you'll see that I've got a goal that I'm trying to pay for my expenses to go to Orlando to see Christopher's sentence. And I probably don't need to spend my money doing that, but I'm also going to have the opportunity to be interviewed there by media. I wouldn't mind meeting Darlene Jones. There's also another media outfit there that wants to meet me and interview me, and so that's what I'm doing, all right? And, and then also there's another thing going down in November, which hopefully I'll be back in America, and it's a massive opportunity to make a huge difference. And I'm going to tell you this story because it's something I don't talk about often, but I've been investigating the Pakistani software houses for quite some time, and one of my Avengers is very stealthy, absolutely incredible at researching stuff about this Pakistani software houses. I don't know them. I don't know where they live. I assume, I'm thinking where they live. They have provided me absolutely incredible information about the Pakistani software houses. The lady that reached out to me today actually searched for the company that had scammed her and found, she said the company that she was working with had the word 360 in it. So I went to my own website, I searched for the word 360, and I find as Neem Bilwani, which I'm getting better at saying his name these days. I'm just going to bring up a couple of these names. There's a method of my madness here. Yes, as Neem Bilwani. So he's a guy, his company have actually put 3 lawsuits in against me in Pakistan. And literally, if I don't defend myself, they'll win by default. So fortunately enough, I've got defence out here, people who look after me. So just to give you an idea, we've got about 1,000 website addresses like this. Okay, now this lady picked one of these websites to write her book. So just to give you an idea, this is a company that you would see literally when you searched and you went on the internet and searched for book publishing companies, you would stumble across a website like this, not in the free results, but in the paid results. So Google, I have seen receipts of $4 million where I've seen Google accounts where Google is taking advertising dollars from these companies who have created these websites. And every single one of them has got a phone number you can ring in America. They've got an LLC company that they have set up in America, and they are literally pretending they're a real company. All the back end of it's ran from Pakistan. And the people who are working the Pakistani back end are people that have been promised that they'll get paid quite large wages by working in Pakistan for these companies, for the, let's say, cartel networks. Then what they do is, if the sales team doesn't reach the quota that they're meant to on a monthly basis, they tarnish they put their wages on hold, and they threaten their families and all sorts of things if they don't meet the sales quota. So you've got Pakistani people scamming Americans using legitimate companies set up by Pakistani people that have got immigration rights to America. Their friends back home have asked them to set up a company. They're managing the whole company. They're scamming Americans. They're going back to Pakistani, basically using slave labor in Pakistani to scam people out of their money. So, can I make a difference? I'm thinking. So I'm about to go to one of the biggest scam conferences I've ever been to in my life. I'm going to meet the everybody's in this industry. And I'm going to actually pitch the fact that they start investigating the Pakistani software houses. Then the lady tells me that she's part of a charity that she set up. She tells me that they've got funding from the government, from the military for her condition. Because her condition is, I'm not going to say the name because it will probably identify her. It will theoretically help people with the cancer research, people with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. It's all similar. So what she's got, her sickness, she's gone out there and started a charity. She's raised funding. She's gone to a friggin' book company here to tell her story so she could sell her book to do more fundraising. The money that she's got in the charity, 50% of the money that she's raised, has now gone towards this book publishing opportunity, and they've basically lost the money. She doesn't want to tell the people in the charity that are part of it because she's a bit embarrassed and she feels like she's stupid, she's been conned, all this sort of stuff. Not only that, she's in the biochemistry industry with the research. And it just so happens that there's another individual that's been scammed who's done a few documentaries, which are world class, who's asked me to get involved in doing a real-time investigation. I can't tell you what it is, but it's something where it will probably come out in a documentary one day. I'm starting to think that not only can we help people, I can actually have a major influence in, the narrative, or controlling the narrative of where we investigate scams and the like. And I'm a little guy in the bottom of the world with a team of Avengers which are mighty, and we can make a difference. And there's some fundamental things that really rip my hem of my nightie, is the fact that we aren't battling scammers in Pakistan. We're not battling day trading guys who are promising the world. We're actually battling Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google Merchant for adverts, YouTube, who are facilitating these scammers and giving them a platform. And what limits us is donations, funding. We've got technology coming out at the moment that's just making my job easier and amazing. I mean, imagine what I'm doing with, look at these companies. Why can't technology, AI, why does domain name companies allow these companies to set up websites like this? Not just one. There's another one right here, right now, looking like it's offering their services to people. Why can't, domain name companies seek out these domain names? Why can't they do a bit of research? It's not rocket science, and just turn these names off. The nation's publishers, here's another one, another live chat session, another live chat program that's using Zendesk. So Zendesk are providing chat rooms for people to facilitate, fooling people out of their money. These are pretty flash websites. I'm a website developer. This website, there's another local phone number here I can ring right now. And why don't we just do it for shits and giggles and see who actually answers this phone, whether it sounds like an American, because it's telling me it's an American company here. So I'm ringing an 084 number, and we're going to go 85, and we're ringing that. And now I'm going to ring, wonder where I'm going to be put through to. Let's have a listen. Headphones, let's go speaker. Oh, it's engaged. Somebody else must be getting scammed. That is a Doswell. But, I could go to another website here. Oh, that one's been taken off. That's good. Somebody's doing their job. But, what I'm getting at is Americans are getting scammed by Pakistani people in America because Americans aren't using their own technology to actually stop these people doing it. And now it's fallen back onto the private sector, people like me and my Avengers who spend hours putting together, complaints, all sorts of things. So this one's Houston, Texas. The Empire Publishers. Here we go, we've got through. I wonder who we're going to listen to. Must be busy getting them out of bed at this time of night. But look at this. This one here has even got YouTube videos. So let's go to YouTube.
Welcome back to Living Local. Our next guest's memoir offers a
Now I wonder what they are offering publishing. Living Local as seen on TV. So you wonder, don't you? So that doesn't look like they're going to answer me. But what I'm getting at, so this company here, because we've researched all these companies, so this company's claiming it's managed to find itself on TV.
I was looking for the raw, honest truth about what it's like. And
I don't even know, if this is real. It says hashtag Empire Publishers. It's got 40 subscribers, so it's not anything big. And here's a company that claims that they've got... so if you were looking for a book company, I don't even know what this is. I'm actually curious here to see whether this is actually...
Themselves. And so what I decided to do was I went to my boss and I said, you know what, can heal? This is also helping them.
I don't know what this is, but I can't get into everything I see straight away and find out determination. But let's say the Empire Publishers is a real company or isn't a real company. How do you verify this is companies? How do you find the track record of this company? And, but that when you line them all up, there's All American Writer, another Pakistani company, so it just goes on and on and on. The trademark crutch. So this is what they do. They tell you that they're going to publish a book. Then they tell you need a website. Then they tell you need a logo design. Then they tell you need a USB number. Then they tell you that you need to have your trademark registered. And they just keep charging you time and time again. It's absolutely incredible. And look, they give you these starting from 149 packages, whatever it is, get you in the door. You start chatting. So we go to the chat box, and now we've got You Talk To, another company that we'd have to reach out to saying, do you realize that you're facilitating letting people have a chat room on their website, blah, blah, blah. And it just keeps on going over and over again. But anyway, my point is I can probably help that lady who rang me at least tell her story. But some of the research that we're doing right now is absolutely incredible. Now, I'm going to give you another example. So with one of the biggest... Queen of Karma's posted something new. I'm now, Queen of Karma probably realises this, but she's never actually said to me, when you go to theheck.com, you'll find my blogs on my homepage. But when you go to blogs and go to anti-MLM and cults, I've got a category where all of Queen Akama's articles come, and she's now published quite a few. I don't even know how many, but I'm guessing she's up to 60 or maybe 80 blogs that she's published, and they're world-class blogs. They're very, very good. And I love my website. At the moment, my website's getting a denial server attack. People are trying to take my website down. So we've put Google Project Shield on at the moment. That's why it's a bit of a pain for some, but I can't do anything about it until that stops. But in the meantime, on the homepage, I normally just have my content because she was getting a bit excited there and I was competing against her. So I just made my content come up on the homepage. But the other day, I decided to let her content come up as well, which is me moving over and letting some other people have a voice, which is really, really cool. So what I'm getting at, guys, is this glamping investigation that I've done. This is the second article that I've published. And when I finished publishing it, it was an amazing story. And to put it short, Lorenzo, this guy here, has been selling these global glamping packages. Now, he was originally working for a company called Phone Sales. Phone Sales charge 40% to get the sale over the line. So if you're selling a $200,000 glamping package, Phone Sales take 40% of that money just to get the sale. I thought, wow. But then I went to Phone Sales and said, what the hell are you doing and why do you charge that sort of money? And they provided me everything. Literally, they told me that Lorenzo used to work for Phone Sales. Phone Sales then started working for a guy called Devlin. Devlin got 4 sales through Phone Sales, but never paid Phone Sales. So then Lorenzo had a fallout with Phone Sales, and then Devlin decided to set up another company called Phone Sales LLC, and then he put Lorenzo's name as a member of that company, apparently without Lorenzo's knowledge. So then Lorenzo starts working for Devlin and starts selling. He goes back and works for Devlin and starts selling these glamping packages again. Then he realizes that Devlin is not delivering what he's selling, and then he, for some reason, went back and worked for him again. Long story short, it's a really interesting story. Now we've got Lorenzo, who's set up his own glamping business, and he's now offering people the same sort of deals, but professionally done. And now Lorenzo's going back and fighting the battle for the victims who have lost money, even though he's been promoting the scheme. And I've got him on recording basically stating that he would refund everyone's money. But in the meantime, I received so much information that what I finished up with was not my normal blog. I've got 38 different sections of that blog. And then just the other day, we find that Lorenzo has been fired from his, he used to be an investment advisor. And he got fired from his investment advisor company for stealing food from the cafeteria for something. So I've got documents here, and when I'm piecing together this investigation, I use AI a lot. I read through every part of this, and it's just incredible. I'm just stop another scammer trying to scam me. So it's now one marathon. It's so big, this blog, I won't even be able to do a video and tell you all about it. But the research that I've got from this is amazing. Now, to date, as for donations, I've received probably $150 for doing 2 massive investigations. I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours on this. It's not about the money, but it certainly helps if you can support what we do. So when I woke up this morning, see somebody bought me 100 cups of coffee. That was really, really nice. When I don't even know who it is, that's absolutely incredible. When you see the struggles and how I use technology, and I wish I just had a bigger budget. And also we're trying to set up the AAA at the moment, which is the Avenger Anti-Fraud Alliance. I can't show you a website that we're setting up at the moment, but we're actually trying to build an organisation called AAA, which is the Anti-Fraud Alliance. And if you don't know who that's about, you can actually go to my music and you'll actually see The music link on my website takes you to this, and if you have a wee listen to this, you can see our wee logo here, the Anti-Fraud Alliance, and you can listen to us here. Oh, look, we've got 859 views so far, but that's what we're doing. It's actually quite neat. This is, I wonder if the song actually works. Quite good. Whoa! But yeah, we're having a bit of fun along the way, but I do believe that every day I wake up and I think we're getting closer to, actually making a difference. Well, I think if we had support from, the Googles, YouTubes, Facebook, Instagram, TikToks, even, Telegrams and WhatsApps and all those people, if they used us to identify scams, or we could prove to people, our research and how it's all working and what we're actually doing with it. I believe, we had a conversation with the CFTC to Department of Justice's defence attorneys, and they said that they couldn't believe the amount of information that we're actually able to gather on individuals with our research. I just don't understand how the world works enough to wonder why they don't use more people in the private sector. That's what I'm really getting down to. But anyway, that wasn't what I wanted to start with today. I've got some lovely people in the chat room. Queen Akama's in the chat room. Susie's in the chat room. Neville's in the chat room. And Velvet in the chat room as well. And you're all having a wee bit of a chat in there. I did a bit of an investigation yesterday on Goliath Ventures. Now, we received another court document from Goliath Ventures. And another thing which I'm going to tell you, I hope Susie doesn't mind, but I'm going to tell them anyway, is we have actually, well, I say loosely we, but the Avengers, otherwise known as some of our investigators who look into the blockchain stuff more than I can, have said that we've actually discovered about $3 million worth of cryptos sitting there from what we believe co-conspirators with Goliath and the like. And we've handed that all over to the powers at be, and we've just heard nothing back. Richard's in here as well. There we go. Love that new truck, Richard. That truck thing. I'm going to see if I can bring a photo of that up. And we get crickets. And I'm thinking, I said to Susie, well, why don't we just publicise that we've found $3 million worth of crypto from Goliath people, and just show the world how we do it.
Ready,
look at Richard's new
set,
truck.
Showtime.
I think it's Richard's new. Is this your new trailer, Rich? I'm going to get done for that music, so I'm just going to pause it. You can play 7 seconds of music and not actually get done for it, so let's try again. Or I could just turn that sound off. The music does make it, but I can't play that music. So this is a cool truck. And then when you don't need to, well, now you don't pay so much road tax. Is that how it works? And look at this truck. This is... I think that was actually connected to your truck. I've been in this truck, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Look how long that is. Isn't it insane? Is that our truck, Rich? I couldn't quite see the door, but I presume that's our truck. I say our truck. But we've chased down bad guys in that truck, haven't we? So what I'm sort of saying, so we've tracked what we believe $3 million worth of crypto sitting there doing nothing. Then what we're going to look at today is all the houses that Christopher actually people thought that they had wealth with, and then we're going to show you where the money. See me scratching my head. The reason I'm scratching my head there, we don't know where the hell the money's gone. We believe that we even starting to believe that Chris has stashed money. So that's where we've got to with our Goliath investigation at the moment, because where we're seeing the money doesn't seem to add up. And it's just, what has Christopher done with $328 million as he's brought in through the bank accounts? We know that there's about $70 million worth of outstanding debt around the world. But he seems to have, if you could buy a car for $1 million, would you hand over $1 million if you're that rich? Or would you just find a finance company and then pay the minimum payments? Well, that's in short what he's actually been doing. So everything that Christopher's been doing is the minimum payments. Most of these houses that we track down, and to be honest, even Danny hasn't said this before, but in the last 6 months before he fell over, he seemed to buy the majority of these houses in the last Well, it seemed like since September he was buying all these houses. So why was he buying all these houses at the end of his last hurrah? And what was he doing with the money? And was he paying commissions to people that were promoting it out so much that that's where all the money went? So we don't really know. Right, Ashman Farah did. So what did Ashman Farah did? They moved to go as me tokens. Why? See, I don't understand that. Me tokens. Why not the USDC and other tokens that just sitting there? So we've found tokens and bits of chewing gum and peanut butter sandwiches that have been left on the blockchain, you see. What we are going to have a quick look at here is, remember, I have got my first book, and it's the memoirs of Goliath Ventures. So if you click on that, you can go buy the book if you really want to read Christopher's confession. Today only, we've now got an index of the investigation. So we've done this so you can get to certain parts of the investigation, because my blogs are getting a bit lengthy these days. We also have managed to get some lovely photos of Christopher's house. I've actually stood right there while I've driven past. It's an endless cul-de-sac. And we didn't want to get done for copyright. So I asked ChatGPT to produce me a picture of Isleworth Country Club. And I don't even know if that is real. But this picture, theoretically, is all done with AI. So isn't it? And that might explain the perfect hedges. But who knows? But if anyone else, let's do a reverse image search on that image. That would be quite funny, wouldn't it? Let's see if anyone else has got that image anywhere. Or it is similar to a real photo. Because I didn't want to, so let's see how that works. So this isn't that incredible? So that there looks like because I've been through that. So let's have a look. I can't even make it bigger. But don't you think that's a bit of a crack up? So I'm guessing, how does AI work? Does it go through and find similar photos? So I'm guessing that this photo, oops, that's not the right one. Oh, look, coming back. Oh, we've stuffed it up now. I'm trying to make that larger, but it won't let me pinch it. So I don't know what we're doing there. Visit. Let's see if we go to... I just think that's quite funny. Is that it there? No. No. I think that... I don't know. But anyway, what I'm getting at, guys, if you see this photo and you're thinking, I've been there, I don't know what that looks like. That's theoretically what ChatGPT says it looks like. Isn't that quite funny? I'm just going to do a quick search somewhere else here. But yeah, so what we're going to do today is have a look. What am I looking for? So isn't it funny that Chris's picture comes up first on the left here when you search for Isleworth Country Drive in Windermere, probably because it's been the most looked at. But these literally are the houses that you see when you go there. Like the average house is like 6 million to 40 million. I actually think that house is Tiger Woods, and I think that's a $40 million house. I could be wrong, but I do believe. But I'm sitting here looking at the photo that I've created to see whether it's been anyway. And we've got no sightings of Chris at the moment, so we don't even know. We've got Bimbo. Oh, I shouldn't say call her Bimbo. It's not very respectful. But we've got Tay doing Telegram. What do they call it? TikToks just 2 days ago. But we have no proof of Christopher still being out of jail. So what have we got here, Suze? Susie's given me an address, and you can all look it up yourself. But I think Susie needs to put together a blog. So how much is in there? $145,000, and this is meant to be Punic Shores. Is that what you're saying? Investor under Punic Shores were being paid from this address. So yeah, so that's really clever. So 83 days ago, which would coincide probably quite nicely with when it all collapsed. But this is the address that people were getting paid out to. So don't think you can't help us with your crypto addresses. If you've received money from any co-conspirator, by all means, reach out to us and let us know, because that would be pretty cool. There's 127K in that crypto wallet. See, how do you get to 127K by looking at this? I can't see it. Well, there was, or there is. Can we call the local lockup and check lockup. Can we call the local lockup and check? What are you talking about, Nev? Oh, anyway, but the only way to get started in this investigation today is we're scratching their head because there's no money left in the houses. The defendant, is it defendant? Let's have a listen.
The defendant properties were paid for with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme.
Right. So let's have a look and see what happened. For months, we've been following the collapse of Goliath Ventures, tracing the money, reviewing federal court findings and bankrupt records, examining seized luxury vehicles, documenting properties, and spending countless hours, everybody, working through interviews with former CEO Christopher Alexander Delgado and the people who helped build the Goliath story. So often we do have co-conspirators, and people seem to get pissed off with us when we put co-conspirators on the screen. But co-conspirator, so I did actually have a definition of what a co-conspirator was, and I've actually documented that quite well. So do co-conspirators sign up people and have contracts with their name on them? No, not all of them. So other way co-conspirators could actually be is people endorsing bad behaviour. So we're not picking on him, but Dante has had a couple of videos out lately about him, and he's upset that we've called him a co-conspirator because he thinks he's an innocent man because he didn't break the law. But he said he was celebrating Mardi Gras with a week before Christopher handed himself in. And then he claims he was there because he was worried about his mother and his investments, which may be just his mother's investments, who knows. And he said that they were worried that they were going to lose their money. But they ignored the warning signs and basically kept on promoting or endorsing him in some form or other. And I haven't nailed anything exactly, but when we did our research, this list isn't saying these people are all guilty, but we believe they contribute to the growth of Goliath Ventures. Now, is other people that could potentially be on that list, and we haven't put them on the list. And let's use Mark, the lawyer. Now, he sold his buildings to Christopher for $3.2 million. We questioned him. We researched how much those buildings were meant to be worth. He told us everything we wanted to know, and then he asked Chris to open up the books, and Christopher wouldn't. So weeks went by. After that, he said, I have nothing to do with it. And then he went against them and started warning other people to get their investments out of the company because he didn't feel good about it. So you could actually say technically, because he was initially involved, he's a co-conspirator. But he didn't march the same beat of the drum right to the very end, like these individuals in these photos. These individuals basically ignored every warning sign. And since my investigation on September the 1st, these people kept on promoting Goliath Ventures. So when I was actively researching Goliath Ventures and anyone associated with it, every single one of these people in these photos marched the same beat as Chris was beating drum. I don't even know if I'm saying that right to the very end. They ridiculed us. They didn't believe us. They didn't listen to us. So that's why these people are on the co-conspirators. Now, if, let's use Mark as an example, was endorsing Christopher when we were doing our investigation, he would have been on this list as well. And there's other people as well that aren't on the list. There's people like Sanjay. Sanjay provided merch to Christopher. And for the Vault 2025, he supplied 400, well, I don't know about supplied, use that word loosely, but there's an invoice where Christopher was paid $402,000 for a whole lot of merch. And as a lot of people that follow my YouTube channel will know, if you are subscribed, now that's a good time to get you guys to make sure you subscribe. I'll click that button there. So if you aren't subscribed and you're watching this, please do subscribe because it helps me investigate these scams and go through it. But what I'm getting at is we saw invoices that were huge being paid when the actual cost of the goods could have been only worth $100,000. So all of a sudden, and then we see these same individuals. We saw Sanjay with arm around Chris. They're at all the events together. You know, we can't help but, ignore. And if you have subscribed, I get Sadie to clean the screen. She likes doing that. She hides under my desk. She gets paid nothing around here. But she always keeps your screen of your computer nice and clean. Thank you very much. But yeah, so what I'm getting at is everyone in here we feel justified putting here. We're not going to update the list. We don't need to update the list. We've got over 300 persons of interest in our database. We've got, over 400 proof of claims in there. Some of these people that have lost money are claiming that they're victims because they've lost money and they were involved and they believed it true and they didn't realise he was running a scam. Some people didn't even investigate, about it. They didn't want to know about it. They just wanted the money to keep going in. As Christopher said in his live investigations, that a lot of people didn't want to be audited because they didn't really want to know too much about the company. They just wanted the dividends to keep coming in, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so what have we got here? We've got another address linked to Nick Petrillo. So here's some addresses. If you're clever enough, you can actually pause me and take a screenshot of the website address at the top and then put it into ChatGPT and ask it to tidy it up and check it. And then you can go in here. So this is an address that we believe is associated to, linked to Nick Petrillo. So if I went in here, I can actually put a wee nickname in here and I can actually put linked to Nick Petrillo. Save changes. So next time anyone pays, now 12 days ago, goodness me. So what's happening 12 days ago? Money been moving? Fake? Oh, these are just the normal stuff you get from, somebody trying to make a transaction happen. Like they might deposit $1 into the account and then it's coming from a pushing phishing scam. I get it. All right, don't get it. But what is this one here? I'm curious now. What's this transaction for? Transaction. I don't know how to read crypto, but we're linking these wallets together. G'day, big rig. Nice to see you here. Nice to see you. Nice. So don't think we're not tracking. So we believe there's a bit of money left in the crypto. We believe that at the moment we've got crickets from, let's just say the FBI and Homeland Security and CFTC and who else is at the Department of Justice. We've provided the information. They know who we are. They've asked for the information. We provided. We've got crickets. And now we're getting these sort of, these are like summaries of what's happened. It's like we got told by one organisation that Christopher's date of being sentenced on the 21st of October will probably change multiple times. But we're receiving these sort of documents now, what looks like they're preparing everyone. So if you haven't been, I'm sorry to go on a bit, but I don't want to miss anything. If you haven't done a proof of claim, it's too late now, I believe. That's right, Sue. So you can't do a proof of claim anymore. That window's closed. Then the next thing they want from you is they want you to do a victim impact statement. Now, on my post of my website, you can actually see we've actually got a post out there on how to do a victim impact statement. So if you haven't done one of those, you want to go out and do one of those. I don't know where it is. There it is. Okay, so there'll be a post there. You'll see me pointing my finger. Okay. Have you lost money to Goliath Ventures? Your voice matters. Please, please, please do that because that's what the judge is going to listen to. So we've put a link in that there where you can actually write in a victim impact statement. And down here you will see it's even got Christopher's name already in here and it's got the case number in here. So fill out a victim impact statement. Make sure you say hello to the Avengers in there. One of the victim impact statements did actually mention me and what a big impact we had on it, which is really nice. I don't know whether I should do a victim impact statement. I don't know. But I think if you've lost money, and all jokes aside, I'm just being a bit funny today, but look, fill out this form and get that in there. And that's what the next thing in this saga is all about. So what I believe is he will be sentenced on the 21st of October, even though they've already changed it from the 8th of October and I had to rebook my flights. I am going to be there with security. I say that in jest. But anyway, I'm going to protect myself. I'm not going to be an idiot. And if you want to meet me, by all means, reach out to us. And I've got lots of offers for dinner. I don't think I'm going to go starving in Orlando or other areas. But it's really, really nice. So, so proof of claims can be filed until the 30th of September. So there you go. And then you've got all these addresses. Another Ether. So here's another. How much did you say? 850K. It's sitting in here. Oh, look at this. There you go. Look at that. 800. Look at that, the estimate. And that's associated to Nick as well. So let's go to add a name. Add that linked to Nick Petrillo. There we go. Make sure we save that one. Yeah, that's amazing. So 12 days ago, that's another phishing one, isn't it? Yeah. So these are wallet addresses that we have tracked. I say we, but it's really Susie and Crypto G. They sit there and they have a cup of tea for 4 hours, then 3 hours, 3 days, 3 months, and they go through all these wallets and they track every single transaction. And this is all being presented to the government. So it's friggin' amazing stuff that the Avengers do. Don't underestimate an investigation. Oh, that's nice to see you here, Bob. Bob's coming into the chat room, everybody. Yeah, so get your proof of claim in. If you haven't done so, you've only got to the 30th of September, and then make sure you do a victim impact statement, and that's us there today. Much of that investigation happened before the public had access to evidence. Federal investigators were gathered behind the scenes. I could see Lamborghinis, I could see Rolls-Royces, I could identify the multi-million-dollar Isleworth mansion, the downtown Orlando corporate offices, which I've been inside, the private jets, expensive parties and carefully curated lifestyles around Goliath Ventures. I could interview investors, examine corporate records, follow social media trails and compare what promoters were saying with what was actually happening. But what I couldn't do was subpoena bank accounts, wish we could, obtain private financial records, or follow every dollar through the financial system. So even though we have reverse engineered this whole scam, and it is the biggest investigation that my Avengers and I have taken on, and we've, I say we, but we've just hours. And what do I get out of it? I get criticised. I get told I'm a poor ass broke YouTuber with no views, but I get donations from people who support what we do, and I'm trying to survive and build an organisation out of donations. So if you can support the work that we do, I do value it. But in the meantime, we're watching all these rich mofos spending investors' funds like it's water, trying to accuse them of running a large-scale Ponzi scheme and scam, getting court documents thrown at us like we are the bad guys to stop us investigating it. The whole system's fucked, really, isn't it? I mean, I can hardly afford to use software which saves me a lot of time and energy to look up and investigate scams. I can't go after these individuals because they get protected by, even YouTube, it makes it hard. Even my own website at the moment is getting a denial server attack, from people that are trying to stop me reporting the truth. And then when I get vindicated by people telling us, even Channel 9 News won't tell our story because they said I'm not a real journalist. I mean, the whole system's fucked, isn't it? I love what I do, and we're good at it. And I just want to get stronger at doing this. Some of the stuff that we are doing is, I can't even tell you, but it's so cool. And we're just about going to hit mainstream scam busters. I'm going to meet a whole lot of the people who I look up to in this industry, which is really, really exciting. As this all comes together, we're going to have a pretty good game plan for our next investigation. And like I said at the start of this talk, the difference, the intel that I can help share with individuals that have been scammed and fast track a lot of their own investigations. I mean, this lady who's lost all this money, I said to her, you want to put in a civil case against this company in Texas? And she goes, oh, would that work? How do I do that? And I said, well, use ChatGPT. Use ChatGPT. Put in all your files, and I don't know if I can actually bring this up without... I don't think I can, actually. No, I can't. I'll just try something tricky. I just want to see. But anyway, this individual... Yeah, probably can't. No, I can't because I've got a name on it. But what I'm saying is I set up a Google Drive account and I put all the files in there, and I literally start uploading all these files of the PDFs, the recordings, Yeah, so it's really interesting. But anyway, that's away the way. Anyway, federal investigators have actually managed to do what we wish we could do. So on the 6th of August, 2023, I received this motion for judgment of forfeiture of defendants' real properties. So that was all very exciting. You can see that's what happens when you go there now. And here we are. Here is 17 pages of where did the money go in the property. And you can go through there and read it and do your own investigation if you don't want to listen to what I'm saying. It will bore you to death. But it's pretty sad. Going through here and you're thinking, oh, he's got all these properties. We already knew they had mortgages against him, and which surprised me. Somebody of Christopher's stature had to apply for a mortgage. Anyway, on August the 6th, we received this document in the U.S. District Court of Middle District, Florida. 17-page filing seeks forfeiture of 6 pieces of real estate connected to Delgado and his companies, including his Isleworth property. Now, we even knew that he couldn't quite afford to buy that property on the night. He was organising a party the night he was moving in, and he was $2 million short. We even watched the money from one investor, $500,000, was used to pay for Chris's house. We tracked the connection with the money, which is crazy when you think about it, isn't it? So here's a guy that's moving into an $8.5 million mansion, is $2 million short, and the Avengers track a $500,000 payment that somebody just paid in that was taken to give to the persons who sold the house to Christopher. And not only that, we was exposing him with videos blow by blow. And he had my face on the big screen in the new house he moved into at a party, ridiculing me and what we were doing in front of his guests. So you can't tell me that people that went to that party didn't know that there was investigations going on with Goliath Ventures at the time, because I was on the big screen. Anyway, 17-page filing seeking forfeiture of 6 pieces of real estate connected to Delgado and his companies, including his Isleworth property, residential homes across central Florida, and commercial office units in downtown Orlando. Now, it's important. It is an important new document in the Goliath Ventures investigation because it allows us to do something we couldn't have done when this story first began. We can start comparing what I discovered from outside with what federal investigators eventually uncovered from the inside. So we can speculate. We can look up record after record after record. We can go through who owns that company and then find out they're a director, and then we realise it's linked to Goliath, and then we can do all this. We can't always go back. But when the government starts providing the same evidence that we have, and we've found that we were right on the money, it's pretty cool. I hope I've said that right. Okay, another address network. What have we got? How many of these addresses have you got, Susie? Look, here's another one. Who's this one here? So who's this one here? So another address. $1 million in this one. Whose address is this? 12 days ago do we have another phishing? Yeah, fake phishing. Ethereum. So there's all the money, guys. I just showed you nearly $3 million worth of investors' money associated with these accounts are all linked together. So take a screenshot of that address. I'll make it larger for you in a second so you can see it. That address there's $1 million sitting in there. Anyone clever? Now, if Zach XBT is watching and he wants to find out who owns that address and who it's linked to, now's your opportunity. Now, you don't know Zach XBT, but if you search for him on Twitter, you'll find he's a massive, a massive blockchain investigator. Now, with another investigation we was doing called BG Wealth Sharing, we found all these addresses, as you do, and put them online, and he found our research. He used those addresses, and he managed to stop $41.5 million being laundered through the internet. And just recently, we had a massive report done with, what's that guy called? Crypto G. And we managed to track $31 million that had been claiming it was doing what do you call that thing? Trading. I don't know what I'm trying to say now. They were doing trading. To think about what I'm saying. They were claiming they were doing trading, and we proved that they weren't. And we did this amazing investigation, and I'm going to actually show you something. Is it there? Yeah, it's not that one. Queen of Karma, your stuff. Oh, here it is. So Crypto G did this amazing investigation. This is what we can do as the Avengers. So that's Crypto G. Looks pretty cool. He's a wee bit older than that, but don't tell him. And if you come through down here, you can see this company even paid me $1,000 to not investigate them, and I refunded it. That was hard to do, but I didn't want to take scammers' money. And if you come down to the Crypto G forensic investigation, this was Crypto G showing the world that this company wasn't doing what they were claiming they were doing with the money. In fact, what he proved is that there were vulnerabilities in their smart contracts, and there were ways that smart contracts are meant to be so smart that no human intervention can cause any harm, and that's meant to give you some sort of peace of mind. But he looked into the smart contracts and found out that they had, problems where people could take out all the money. And he tracked $31 million that was just basically being money laundered. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Now that company has literally shut down. And everyone around the world has lost all their money, and they're claiming that they got broken into, or hacked. But we believe that was the same time he was looking at that, we believe that's when they was moving all the money away from the platform. And he proved it. Our investigation proved it. And now people are coming back to us going, I wish we listened to you guys. And I go, we do too. Stay away from any investment policies. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, what have we got here? Now we are up, so what are we up to now in just crypto? Over $5 million. So over $5 million my team of Avengers have found sitting on the blockchain, ready to go back to investors, and we can't get boo from the government. So if you're sitting here watching my video, Mr. Government, and you want that report, we've given it to you already. Why aren't you compensating? Why aren't you taking back that crypto that these co-conspirators have accumulated on the internet? And there's a challenge for you, because we're going to publish, or hopefully we're going to publish, so I can say this out loud, a blog, and we're going to prove to you guys that you haven't taken $5 million back for the investors. That's a lot of money. Now, it's a lot of money because if we compare apples with apples, we've so far to date received $37,000 back from 12 luxury vehicles, which were helping Christopher show everyone what a luxury lifestyle he's got. All right. So if you've only recovered $37,000, now we know there's been $190,000 recovered from the Orlando Economic Partners, where Christopher decided to pay $200,000 to be on their website as a hero, and they decided to refund $190,000. We also know that Wealth Management MD, which was a company which was meant to be independent, associated with Black Block, not to be mistaken as Black Rock, they also handed over, I think they had $150,000, $160,000 in their bank account. So collectively, to date, out of a $328 million Ponzi scheme, I think we're up to around about $350,000 recovered. And now you've sent out this document here that we're about to read, claiming that there's no money left in the properties either. And then the Avengers get on here and they say to you, well, we've got $5 million sitting here associated with the payment mechanisms that they were using to keep the illusion alive that this Ponzi scheme will go on for hours. We've tracked $5 million. So if you want that information, reach out to the Avengers. And if you are an investor and you get to be in one of those meetings where you get to sit there in the chat room, instead of being a Jonathan Mason claiming that he's seen $1 billion on the blockchain, we can actually give you the addresses of where we believe the money is sitting and who's associated to it. And there's $5 million sitting there still today, doing nothing, going nowhere. That could be hacked perhaps, I don't know. But we've given you the information, why aren't you using it? The government alleges, did they, what we put in there? Did they use the word, ChatGPT, I told you not to use the word alleges. Does it say alleges?
The government alleges that the properties
Covered by the filing were paid with proceeds of wire transferred schemes. So these properties that you've seen in this document are all paid for with investors' money. It identifies mortgages, unpaid property taxes, owners' association debts. So if you live somewhere, you've got to pay to live there as well. I'd never want to be rich. Condominium fees and other financial obligations attracted to assets. Assets that once formed part of the extraordinary image of wealth surrounding Goliath Ventures. That matters because wealth was never merely a background detail to the story. So remember the same assets that you saw flashing around. So next time when I'm in Orlando next, right, which isn't too far away, I'm going to be looking at all these flash cars driving past going, do you own it? Do you own it? I'm going to look at these big flash houses that you see. Does your company own it? Who owns it? If you wanted to know how much money somebody was worth, you want to figure out how much the asset has left, how much equity is left in the asset before you judge somebody's wealth. Throughout my investigation, I keep returning to the same question. How much of what investors were seeing represented genuine financial success? How much of it was helping create the appearance of success? Do you see my Rolex? Oh yeah, that's my Rolex. I'm rich. Now, that's a $2,800 watch. And if you saw me walking around with that and you knew it was worth $2,800, which is about $1,800 US dollars, you'd think I was rich. Well, just so happens I sell these watches for a living. And my mate is very generous. And I used to have I think I paid $1,100 for my first watch. And then every time he upgrades his watch, I work a day free or pay $100 and I get to upgrade my watch. So that's why I can walk around with a $2,800 New Zealand $800 watch, because my mate keeps upgrading his watch and he's a bit more better off than me. But you could perceive that he walks in with $2,800 and pays it for his watch and walks out with a watch like there's no care tomorrow. If you know the truth behind these people's wealths, it may surprise you, and that's what this article is all about. Delgado himself would later provide an extraordinary insight into that question during his heavenly post-arrest interviews. So we're talking about the post-arrest interviews that he had with Darlene Jones, which I'm looking forward to meeting. He spoke openly about perception, wealth investors, and the importance of appearing successful. He described how people judged where you lived, what you drove, and whether you travelled privately. He also acknowledged that Goliath had developed an extraordinary I'm not reading very well today.
exclusivity,
I can't even say it, around itself. What he described as the cool kids club, where simply being associated with him could make people more comfortable handing over their money. So if he gave you the impression that he was doing super duper well, then you didn't even question the fact about handing over your money. And that's how stupid it really is. I thought I actually had, maybe I do have PDFs here. I just wanted to bring up my wee book. I'll just bring up another thing. So if you don't know, I've actually published a book about it, and it's called the Christopher Delgado's Goliath Ventures Memoirs. And in here it is dedicated, first of all, it's a bit of copyright blurb in there, blah, blah, blah. But that whole book is dedicated, if it ever turns up, to every victim who trusted Goliath Ventures with their savings, to the investigators, journalists, regulators, and whistleblowers who refused to look away, and to my Avengers. I love my Avengers. It makes me even emotional just saying this. That the quiet volunteers working tirelessly behind the scenes. Your commitment to covering the truth has made this publication possible. The question I want to ask you, how much longer do you think Goliath Ventures would have continued if we didn't start causing them disruption? And why did that organisation manage to keep going so long? Why didn't people start questioning these animals, these freaky people, sooner? Why couldn't they ask the questions? Prove to us that you're doing liquidity pool trading. Even when we looked into my liquidity partners, they weren't generating, it was impossible for them to generate the returns they were paying out people with the volume that was going through the liquidity pool partners. So the whole lot was a fraud just using a calculator. And if you have a look at this here, you can actually go through, you'll see lots of stuff, about it. We've even got this quote of Chris. Their money was being used to make distributions. We used it for corporate events. We used it for personal spend. We used their funds to keep the company going. So that's what Christopher is going on now. Even ourselves, clawbacks is where we see the next round of money coming, and we hope that actually happens. But when you think about it, we often go over our own research and go, oh my goodness, it was so blatantly obvious. And maybe this is a very true statement from Christopher. Distributions, that was at the top of his mind. He knew that he was paying out that money. That's why we have that list of co-conspirators. Those people that you see in these pictures, these are the people. Not all of them, but the majority of them were getting paid the dividends. And that's why he's said distributions. Corporate events, we know that he had a $500,000 Christmas do in 2024 and a $9 million Christmas do, where even Jason Derulo didn't get paid. Hey, look, if you want to get it, the whole transcript, the original transcripts were actually put in here, and at the very end, we've actually added, I can't even get to the end of this. Let's go to the end. It must be an easy way of going to the end. Maybe I'll just type in the page number. Maybe I could do, but I'm nearly there now. So at the end, you'll actually see a lot of additional information's in here. So we've actually put the co-conspirators' names in here. We've actually put the personal. So in this whole, so there you go. So in the whole transcripts, we've actually listed people mentioned in the transcripts. And this is Chris's words, not mine. We've got Christopher, Darlene Jones. We've got the people that he claims that he was providing advice to. Jason Newton, whatever his name is, you can read it. Mark James, we've even got him mentioned here where he fits in. Matt Burks, Nick Petrillo, Nadia Bringus. Dante's bookkeeper was Nadia Bringus, can you believe? And he still claims he's not involved. Anyway, other individuals we mentioned, and in here we've got a list of the co-conspirators. We haven't put, we've put their names of their companies in here. You're going to hear this name coming up in a few minutes quite a few times. The similarities, we've got Abati, I can't even say it, Abati, I'm going to read it.
Habibi Holdings
Habibi.
LLC.
So then we've got Habibi Holdings, and then we've got Habibi HQ LLC, Wyoming versus Florida, all these people, Christine Turner, which was Nick Petrillo's administrator, but that was actually Nick Petrillo's sister, and all their different roles. So if you want to get this book, it's $5 and it helps support the work that we do. And that's why when you come to me reading this, you'll see this Goliath Ventures memoirs, so you can read it to your heart's content. But anyway, Darlene Jones did get the privilege of interviewing Chris. We also have other people that have interviewed Chris that you don't know of, but you'll find out in a few months' time, and I'll go, ha, 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 ha. But anyway, he described how people judged where they lived and all this sort of crap, the Cool Boys Club. At that time, I was investigating many of those same symbols. How federal court records are beginning to show us the financial reality underneath them. The Ellsworth Mansion isn't simply an impressive house anymore. There was a purchase trail, tax and recovery entity. The corporate headquarters wasn't simply a spectacular office space designed to impress investors. There was an ownership company, financial history, and outstanding condominium obligations. Other properties were simply evidence that someone had become extraordinarily wealthy. The other properties weren't simply evidence that somebody had become extraordinarily wealthy. Some of them carried hundreds of thousands, and in one case had $2 million in mortgage debt. mortgage debt. Does that mean they were behind? Oh, I don't know. This is where the latest federal filings become particularly valuable. Rather than simply reporting what the government wants to take Christopher Delgado's property, that they want to take Christopher Delgado's property, I went back through what they had already investigated. I compared the new forfeiture information with Delgado's own interviews, the assets he previously examined, that we previously examined, and the lifestyle Goliath presented while hundreds of millions of dollars were flowed into the operation. The result is very different way of looking at the latest development. Now, I'm not reading very well today. I'm not going to put you through the pain, so I'm just going to read this next paragraph. Give yourself a break for a bit. Let's have a go.
This isn't simply a story about 6 properties being forfeited. It is an opportunity to place 2 investigations side by side. What could be discovered independently in real time, and what federal investigators were eventually able to establish after gaining access to the money trail. For the victims of Goliath Ventures, there is also a much more practical question. Once the mansions, houses and corporate offices are stripped of their mortgages, taxes, association fees, legal obligations and selling costs, how much of the wealth that everyone saw will actually be left? That is the trail I am following now.
Yeah, so how much of the trail will actually be left? So what I said to you earlier on, we've got an index. So we've got these government moves against the real estate, and you can go to any section. So if you think my blogs or my videos are too long, you can basically click on each section. So let's watch this. New stuff, isn't that clever? The latest development arrived on the 6th of August 2026. Americans do it backwards. When the United States filed its consent motion, is it consent motion?
Consent.
For judgment of forfeiture of defendant's real estate property in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District, blah, 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 Orlando Division. The distinction is important. The document is not the final judgment ordering the property's forfeiture. It is a motion filed by the United States asking the court to enter that judgment. According to the filing, the relevant title owners are consented to forfeiture of the properties covered by the motion, while legitimate interests held by mortgage lenders, home owners association, condominium association, and tax authorities will be recognised before the remaining proceeds are dealt with. So basically, any debt that those properties have will be repaid to the banks, the home associations, and anyone that's owing money before they start giving the dregs to the investors, which is just disgusting. So no doubt about now you'll probably be feeling a bit green if you have invested, hoping that these properties were going to amount to something. The government is seeking forfeiture of 6 pieces of real estate connected to Christopher Delgado and the companies that it controlled. So what I did is I did what every good investigator does. He spent ages putting together this blog to make it lots of fun for you guys. So you can actually click on all those links, and we can actually now go and have a look at the 6 properties. So the first property, now we might see golf balls being flown into Chris's property, apparently going by Chris's own admission. There used to be 1 golf ball every week landing in his property. He's now getting 20 golf balls a day being thrown into his $8.5 million mansion, which is a bit of a hard case, really. I don't know if we can actually get a closer view of that house, but that's just the aerial view. But you can see that it's in a golf course. So if you like golf, go have a game of golf, and please put my name on one of the golf balls and throw it into Chris's house. The next one is the house which I believe Andy, Chris's wife, lived in, and we do have a photo of that house, and you would have seen that one on the news a few times. And that window there is really good. If we go a bit closer, can we go closer? Well, we can. That window there that you look at has now got all the signs about how the house has been seized. So the news media have been outside that house, so check out that one. This one here was a bit unusual. This was like, I don't know where this house come into it, but I think from memory, I have a feeling that Nick used to live in this house, but I could be wrong. But I don't think we've got any way of, we might be able to have a look and see if there's any way of actually having a look at that house. No, hasn't got the wee man hasn't driven past and taken a photo of the house, but that was another one of the houses that was in the forfeiture. And then this one here, well, this used to be owned by Jackie Segal, I believe, this house. And you can actually get a bit of a looky here. And if you go down the drive here, this was like a ranch house. And we did think he bought this house for a reason. I'll just see if we can we'll go past a little bit more. Can we go back? There it is. So there's the house there. You can just see a little snippet of the house. Don't know why he bought this one, but it seemed like he bought this one at the end, which is really weird. And obviously we've got downtown Orlando, nice building, been there. I won't lie, I've actually been in the very building that's here, the Chase building. There's 2 arms to it, so I actually enjoyed that. One day I'll show you the video. Just make sure Christopher's behind bars beforehand, because he might come after me for like breaking an entry or something. But you shouldn't leave those wee combination numbers on the door. It's too tempting for somebody who knows how to pick those. Anyway, in this one here, I do remember there was a Bella. So that's the other house there, and I don't think we've got a wee man that's been past that house. No, we can probably have a look at the motorway though. Let's have a look. So over that wall there, I wonder if that's the house there. One of those houses there. So there you go. But if you are ever wondering how to do that, you can actually sometimes just paste in the address, and then you can actually get the pictures of the house. So, if you want to go there, and this was, I reckon was that where one of them, I don't know who lived there, but hey, look, there's lots of things that you can do. Actually, I am tempted now. We've got that one already. Oh, well, why don't we do that one? Because that's going to be fun. Let's have a wee look at these lovely houses. So if you're rich and famous, these are the ones. If I just gone back to where I have, that can't be right. Oh, look, they've got a bricks truck outside. That's not the same house, but theoretically, that there, it could be the house. No, it is one of those houses. So look, you can come to images. That's a pretty boring house though, isn't it? Is that the house? Are you kidding me? It's not very flash. Not that I wouldn't say no to it. But is that the house? I don't know. Anyway, carry on. And then we're going to go look at, I think I just brought that one up, haven't I? I'm doing the same thing twice. Yeah, I know, that's another one. All right, let's have a look. Yep. So these are other houses, pretty sure. So Christopher had a burning desire to own this house, that building, or parts of that building, and this house, and of course, we might as well go for the big, I think I've got it in the video, so, and this house here. So there you go. If you want to know all the houses, you can go have a look at them and go, wow, imagine owning those houses. Imagine paying the debt in those houses. On the surface, it reads like an inventory of extraordinary Central Florida property portfolio. But that isn't how I read it. After spending much time investigating the Goliath lifestyle, I was far more interested in what appeared alongside those addresses, who legally owned each property, whether it had been mortgaged, what debt remained against it, who was making claims against it, and who might actually be left. And what might actually be left when everything was eventually sold. Now we know. That is where the latest filing starts pulling the Goliath story apart in a way that photographs of mansions never could. The government's position is that these properties were not simply assets of Delgado, or assets Delgado happened to own while operating Goliath Ventures. Prosecutors alleged they were purchased with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme and the monetary. I'm going to just read this because it's just horrible today. Maybe it's Sunday.
And that the monetary transactions used to acquire them involved criminally derived property connected to the underlying fraud. That takes this story into very different territory.
Yeah, so I think that's what really gets me. Like we were quite tickled pink when we could find out who owned what and the like, and how many properties Christopher thought he had to own. And it was sort of disgusting at the time because we knew what was going on, even though people were still investing right as he was buying. People were literally investing, $250,000, $850,000, even at the times when we were blowing this investigation right up. And then we'd see these assets popping up. And and then we found other people that were doing luxury real estate investment opportunities. And we're wondering if he's using these real estate luxury properties for another venture that another individual is going on. And talking about other individuals, I am actually going to publish our findings of Onyx Reserve, and Tom and Eric McNeil, Tom Shields and Eric McNeil, because we've got enough there to produce one hell of a investigation. Even though that one there is still operating, it hasn't fallen over yet. CoffeeZilla's even done a video showing the lies, but we're still going to publish what we've found, so that when that falls over, we can wave another flag and say we knew all about it before somebody steps in.
Throughout my investigation, I could identify the assets and document how they were being presented. I could examine what Delgado said about them, look at when they appeared, research the companies holding them, and question how a business supposedly generating investment returns have produced such an extraordinary concentration of personal wealth. What I could not independently establish from public records alone was exactly where the purchase money came from. The federal investigation now gives us its answer, and that answer makes it worth going back through these properties individually, because several of them were already familiar to me long before this forfeiture motion appeared.
Yeah, this is probably the most recognisable of them all, Christopher Delgado's Isleworth property. So, interesting enough, all of the properties listed in the government's latest forfeiture filing, Isleworth Country Club Drive in Windermere immediately stood out to me. I had already spent considerable time looking at this property because it became one of the most visible symbols of wealth surrounding Christopher Delgado. This wasn't simply another expensive Florida home, it was inside Isleworth. Am I saying that right? Isleworth? Isleworth, one of Central Florida's most exclusive gated communities, and Delgado himself later took WFTV investigative reporter Darlene Jones through the property during her post-arrest interviews. So yeah, lovely neighbourhood. Have been there myself. Have enjoyed a few beers in the neighbourhood. Must say, can't tell you that. You were probably wondering who I'm talking about. You would have no idea, would you? Excellent. But yes, we were in that community. The average house around about, well, not the average house. Houses range from $6 million to $40 million. And I literally got snuck into that property, which is quite exciting. Thank you. During that investigation, Delgado said he had paid approximately $8.5 million for the property. He first put an offer in for $6 million, I think, and failed. And then they wanted $9 million, and they negotiated $8.5 million if you go through the whole interview, which I've sort of studied. He talked about the house, its value, and the lifestyle surrounding it with remarkable openness. By then, however, I was no longer interested in simply admiring the marble swimming pool. Was it marble?
Marble.
Admiring the marble swimming pool or impressive surroundings. Actually, look, I tell you what, I don't care how rich I get, I cannot see myself in a big flash house like that. When I visited Florida, I did visit one person's house, and it was pretty impressive. I can't even tell you the story, but it had 15-meter studs. Now, I used to be a painter and a decorator. These the chandeliers had picture frames with gold. It wasn't even lavish wealth. It was a home, and it was just a nice place to relax, and you would feel, pretty happy, I think. And even the individual that owned the house did their own gardens to a certain degree. Loved everything about the property. And I could see myself in that house, but I couldn't see myself in Christopher's house because to me, I didn't even like the design of that house. I didn't even like backing onto a golf course where people are walking past your house throwing in golf balls. But anyway, just wanted to throw that in there. So maybe if the house I made my own, I'd like it. And also the house that I went in that I'm referring to, the person had been in the house for quite a few years. The latest federal filings provide an important part of the answer. According to the government, Christopher purchased the Isleworth property in cash. We know where the cash come from. That's the sad part. There was no mortgage. This is significant because unlike several other properties covered by the forfeiture action, there isn't a multi-million-dollar lender standing ahead of the government waiting to be repaid for the sale proceeds, But the filing goes considerably further, that confirming that the house was financed. Oh, hold it. But the filing goes considerably further than confirming how the house was financed. That's better. The government position is that the defendant's properties covered by this action were paid for with proceeds of wire transfer scheme. And that's what we discovered. Even with public records, we actually managed to see a trail of money going from investor straight into the payment of the house. Prosecutors alleged the property are look, I'm no good at reading, so I'm just going to carry on doing what I normally do.
Are forfeitable because they were acquired with money traceable to wire fraud and through monetary transactions involving criminally derived proceeds. That creates an extraordinary contrast with the way this house originally appeared from the outside.
Yeah, not so flash now.
When investors saw a successful businessman living in an $8.5 million Isleworth mansion, the obvious conclusion was that they were looking at evidence of financial success. Goliath Ventures was handling enormous amounts of money, its CEO appeared extraordinarily wealthy, and everything surrounding the company reinforced that impression.
So imagine going to Christopher's house, knocking on his door and go, "Whoa, hey Chris, wouldn't want to pay the mortgage on this one." And Chris goes, "Oh, there is no mortgage."
Now consider what the government is alleging. If prosecutors are correct that the properties were purchased using proceeds of the wire fraud scheme, the mansion wasn't evidence that the investment operation was successful. It was potentially evidence of where some of the money went.
Some of the money. We're still struggling with this one, guys. Where did the money go? Follow the money. Where did it go? If everything was mortgaged, where did it go?
That distinction goes to the heart of what I have been investigating from the beginning. Luxury assets can create an incredibly powerful feedback loop in investment schemes. Investors see the mansion, cars, offices, and private travel and interpret those things as proof that the person controlling the money knows how to generate wealth. That apparent success creates credibility, and that credibility can make the next investor more comfortable handing over their money.
Yeah, Delgado's own interviews later provided some remarkable context around this.
He spoke openly about perception and the way wealthy people judged success. He described how the people around him noticed where someone lived, what they drove, and whether they traveled privately. Elsewhere in those interviews, he described Goliath becoming something resembling a cool kids club, where people wanted access and association with him carried its own social value.
It is bullshit. This is where the life has got to, that you've got to show your assets to prove you're successful. I think I'm successful and I have no assets. I do have a wee Suzuki Swift car.
That is why I don't regard the Isleworth property as simply another asset on a federal forfeiture list. It was part of the Goliath image, and there is another detail in the new filing that strips away some of that image.
You ready for it?
Despite the property having no mortgage, the government says approximately $86,725.28 in unpaid 2025 property taxes and assessments were owing to the Orange County tax collector. The Isleworth Community Association was also owed approximately $12,380.07, including past due assessments, interest, 2026 assessments and attorney's fees.
So you pay $1,000 a month to live in the neighbourhood, and then all of a sudden, unpaid taxes, is that like what you guys call the rates? So he hasn't been paying the rates. Right, next time just go and put a lock on the door and take the garage door remote controls away from him so he can't park his Lamborghini.
Those amounts are expected to be paid from the eventual sale proceeds.
Well, yeah, so that's more money gone.
They are relatively small compared with the apparent value of an Isleworth mansion, but they matter because this is where the investigation stops being about appearances and starts becoming about net recoverable value.
Yeah, just getting rid of some of these houses. Oh, now there you go. Now we did talk about the Vault 2025. We did talk about how Sanjay provided some of the merch, and we've got a invoice of $402,000 from Sanjay, but then all the merch was stored in a container, and you can come through here. We've actually talked to this guy before. He was a victim as well. He bought a container load of goods, boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. A lot of the stuff was even in the they did another round of merch, But if you want a T-shirt, I've already got a T-shirt. If you want a hip flask, just where can you spend the money? That's what he is doing. Thanks for that, Susie. Forget about that. I feel sorry for the guy. If you want some merch for your garage, or you want to wear some merch to the court hearing.
We saw exactly the same thing when I investigated Delgado's luxury vehicles. The headline value of a Lamborghini or Rolls-Royce sounded spectacular until liens, finance and other obligations were taken into account. What mattered to victims wasn't what the vehicle once cost or what Delgado believed it was worth.
Yeah, so we went through the luxury vehicles. We showed you, how he claimed that he didn't do any photo shoots to show off his luxury. Bullshit, there's one there. There was the car that cost $600,000. He spent another $300,000 on it, putting in a transformer body kit as you need to. It originally got sold. It got sold for $625,000, and it was bought back by Ultimate Auto, was the same company that did the $300,000 conversion kit on it. Can you believe? Anyway, and then we've got the Rolls-Royce Ghost. I now know that's the Rolls-Royce Ghost, not the one he drove into the courtroom with, but everyone's got to have one of those. It's got the doors around the wrong way, for God's sake, and you still pay a lot for it. But yeah, so all those cars, out of all those things, the other cars that they had listed here, somewhere there, they were worth nothing. They had all finance against them. So basically, out of all the cars that you saw, the 12 cars in the luxury lifestyle, but they got 37,000. So we saw that happen with the luxury cars. So that's now we've seen the same thing happen with the houses.
It was what remained after everyone else had been paid. The Isleworth property now faces the same test. This time, however, the absence of a mortgage could make the result considerably more significant.
You'd think so.
If the property is ultimately forfeited and sold, the sale price, government expenses, unpaid taxes, association obligations and other recognised costs will tell us what this extraordinary symbol of the Goliath lifestyle was actually worth to the people who lost their money.
For months, we could see the mansion. Now we are beginning to see the money behind it. So isn't that just absolutely batshit crazy? So this is where it gets a bit more interesting, because another name enters the picture, and that's Andy Delgado. Now, we've got evidence that she has been promoting Goliath Ventures. I also have some other people who live in California telling me that Christopher and Andy were pitching him to invest. And this couple with a young family were going to mortgage their house to get involved. And at that time, Christopher and Andy were going through a divorce. So they teamed up, went and visited some friends, didn't mention anything about their divorce, and then pitched them to get involved with Goliath Ventures. And we have other contracts where Andy Delgado has actually been signing up people. Now, she was allegedly getting $20,000 a month spending money from Christopher, from your investments, to keep her lifestyle going, even though he was paying for everything. Now we get a house which we believe he bought for her. Listen to this.
The other properties tell a different story. The Isleworth mansion may have been purchased without a mortgage, but once I moved through the government's filing property by property, the financial picture began to change. Several of the other homes associated with Christopher Delgado and his companies were carrying substantial debt. This is where the distinction between owning expensive real estate and actually having equity in it becomes important.
Yeah, equity's the wealth.
The clearest example is 141S Phelps Avenue in Winter Park, a property owned by Christopher and Andy Delgado. According to the government's filing, the mortgage interest being recognised against that property totals approximately $2.052 million.
And this was actually a pretty nice looking house. It doesn't look, to me, it doesn't look very flash on the, I must be a real horrible person to sell a house to. But I do believe when you have a look around this house, I used to be a painter and a decorator, and when you had plants growing over the house, it was a bit of a pain. But, let's do the video tour. That might be a way of doing it. But if you want to have a wee video tour, let's have a look at Andy's house. I see. So we've got the living room. Whoop, there we go. Family room, entranceway, hallway. Let's see what's down the hallway. Oh, this is pretty cool. That would have been the kitchen, is it? Oh, no. What's that? It's an office. Go gym. Oh yeah, let's go up here. Oh, this is actually quite fun. Primary room. Oh my goodness. Look at that, eh? Look at that. Even having a chandelier above your bed. Oh, it's not quite what I had in mind. Anyway, so to get the idea, what do we hallway? How do we get upstairs? Hallway, upstairs. What's this out here? What's this room here? Let's have a look. Nope, done that one. Oh, what's that there? It looks like another room. A living room. Spanish style, is it? Oh, family room. Let's have a look there. Oh, hallway, family room. Breakfast nook. Oh, I think we're going to go... Oh, look, there's even a map over here. Oh, let's go to the second floor. That's where the action starts happening. We're now on the second floor. We've got a ping pong table. This is a house. Think about what I'm showing you here, guys. This is a house that someone has bought with stolen money, to give themselves a nice lifestyle. How would you sleep at night, in a house like this, knowing that that your ex-husband or your husband, whatever, who's now living with somebody else, has given you this house to pay off? Oh, it's just disgusting. Anyway, that was cool. So the mortgage recognised, so they had $2 million mortgage on that house. Oh dear. How are you going to pay those payments?
That figure includes approximately $1.984 million in unpaid principal, more than $66,000 in interest and additional charges. Interest was also continuing to accumulate at approximately $400.91 per day after August 14th, 2026.
It's disgusting, isn't it? Imagine that. Interest per day, $400.
In other words, whatever this property eventually sells for, more than $2 million may already have somewhere else to go before we even begin talking about money potentially available for victims.
And I think that house, from memory, sorry to go back to where we've already been, I think that was selling for 3.4, wasn't it? Was it 2.7? I think, let's have a look, because I think that was selling for over 2 point, I forget what it was selling for now. So let's have it, the Realtor. I think it was 3.4 or 2.7. Does it actually have a price on it? Oh, so there you go. So they say it's worth 3.2. So we're looking at, by the sounds of it, we're looking at maybe just over $1 million, maybe, if they can get that back for it. Estimated value. I don't know how you estimate the value, but anyway, you get the idea. There may be $1 million of equity in there. Who knows? Right. So now we're going to go to the property.
The property at 17,416 Bell Harbour Drive in Winter Garden, held through Habibi Holdings LLC, carries another substantial mortgage obligation. The government recognises approximately $533,996.69 owing against that property, including more than $513,000 in principal, accrued interest and additional advances and fees.
Right, so we just managed to bring that one up there. They reckon that one's worth $740, and now we're finding out that it gets a $533,000 mortgage. No doubt there's debt in that one too. Interest continues accumulating as that one as well. And then what have we got?
Then there is 222 Pawnee Trail in Kissimmee, titled directly to Delgado. The recognised mortgage obligation on that property is approximately $896,949.40, including more than $854,000 in principal, interest and other fees.
So that one there, so we've got, and this is meant to be, it used to be owned by Jackie Segal, so we believed, could be wrong. By the time I reached these figures, the pattern is becoming difficult to ignore. The public-facing story was a portfolio of expensive properties. The federal filings show us a portfolio containing millions of dollars in debt. So let's carry on.
That doesn't mean the properties have no value. The government itself indicates that it believes there is sufficient equity in the defendant properties to satisfy legitimate third-party interests. What it does mean is that we cannot look at a property worth, for example, $2.5 million and simply add $2.5 million to some imaginary recovery fund.
Imaginary recovery fund, like $1 billion worth of crypto, Jonathan Mason.
The mortgage lender gets paid. Taxes may need to be paid. Homeowners association debts may need to be paid. There are costs associated with maintaining, marketing and selling the property. Only then do we discover what was actually there.
How do you feel about that, guys? I always say it's just sad, when things like this come into our life. I mean, how would you feel having a good mate of yours? So let's just pick on Dante, getting his name right. He goes out partying with Christopher because he's just a party boy. He says he's not endorsing them, at all. He's just out there having a good old time. But then you find out that the same guy that he's out partying with has actually just lived a lie. Do you think, my mum said, she gave me a lot of wisdom, believe it or not, that I'm trying to fix that we, it's gone now. Put it back. My mum used to say that bad associations spoil useful habits. So if we're going to start hanging out with these guys, and we're going to just enjoy the good life with them and pretend that they're living a good, where does ethics and values come into it? Isn't that what we're meant to be doing? Aren't we meant to be, what I'm getting at is, how can you hang around somebody like this? How can you not investigate? The next rich buddy that you see going from trailer parks to friggin' billionaire status, maybe we should question those people. Maybe it may not be wise associating with that type of person simply because if they're hiding secrets or giving you a veneer of their lifestyle. It doesn't mean shit, does it really? And there's other people out there at the moment which were still on our radar that we're still investigating, like Eric McNeil and Tommy Shields. They are literally claiming that they are raving successes. I can guarantee you anything you like that their cars are mortgaged up the hills, they don't own the houses they're in, and they're probably using investors' funds to maintain their lifestyle. That's what you seem to do in this world.
This is something I had already encountered while investigating Delgado's luxury vehicles. Looking at a Lamborghini with a 6-figure price tag tells you almost nothing about how much money will ultimately be recovered from it. Once finance, liens and selling costs are removed, the number that matters can be dramatically different from the number that helped create the original impression of wealth.
So do we need to give people the impression that we're wealthy by our assets?
The latest federal filing now allows us to apply the same scrutiny to the real estate. There is also a fourth residential property, 7,333 Bella Forster Place in Sanford, where the picture remains incomplete. The government confirms that Change Lending LLC holds a mortgage, but the filing does not provide the outstanding balance. That is important to acknowledge. I can tell you from the federal record that the mortgage exists. I cannot responsibly tell you from this document how much equity remains in Bella Forster, because the number needed to make that calculation simply isn't provided.
Well, we can just about guarantee that we know that that's going to be a big figure, not a few $100,000, more likely 85% of the house.
And that distinction matters to the way I approach these investigations. There have been plenty of opportunities throughout the Goliath story to take an expensive asset, attach the largest possible number to it, and create an impressive headline. But that isn't following the money. Following the money means asking who really owns the equity, who gets paid first, and what remains when the asset is converted back into cash. The government's latest filing is finally giving us some of those answers.
Right.
But the next property takes us somewhere even more interesting, because it wasn't simply part of Christopher Delgado's personal lifestyle. It was the place where Goliath Ventures presented itself to the world.
Well, they never really got a chance to actually use it. They got a film crew in there. I think it was Fox 35 News, actually, from memory, because I think we talked to the guy that interviewed me but never aired it. He said I didn't have a Flash Enough T-shirt on, basically. Anyway, let's not go there. I got over that. Wasn't a professional journalist. Don't say that, Dan. Get on with it. Anyway, Goliath headquarters come back into focus. So this was where they were claiming to be. Ironically, they were using Chase Bank, and they were in the Chase building. And also, it was a nice view out the windows, But wait until you hear the money that they owed the building, even though they owned it. Let's have a listen. And this used to be the offices of Mark Najames. Mark Najames used to own these offices and actually sold them to Christopher. And in the video with Darlene Jones, he was insinuating that he'd paid too much for it. And in the same breath, he said that they got an independent realtor to give them a valuation at the time, and he said it sounds about right. After talking to Mark about the sale of this building, he said that he got the market value of the buildings before he sold it to them, and he literally discounted it back a little bit because they didn't have to engage with a realtor. And then Christopher, who's obviously got all pooey with Mark, has decided to allege that Mark was doing something shady. And from my research, I haven't found anything yet of any shadiness other than Mark selling his buildings to Christopher for a little bit of a discount than you would have if they went through a realtor, because they were doing a private deal. And there was 50 car parks for sale. In here, I think they talk about 30 car parks. Christopher didn't want them all. You know, all sorts of things. We looked at everything to do with the sale of this building. And we also looked at the company it was sold to. You would think it would have been sold to Goliath Ventures, correct?
The commercial units at 189 Orange Avenue in downtown Orlando are particularly interesting because this wasn't simply another property sitting quietly inside Christopher Delgado's portfolio.
Oh, I'm quiet. Okay, I'm just going to play with my sound. Oh, my goodness. Wouldn't you tell me? Better now, isn't it? I wish you told me that sooner. Thank you so much, the big rig. Yeah, my sound's better. There was a button. Was it echoing? I'm actually curious now. How bad was my sound for so long? I've been talking for ages. Somebody asked, if you hear me talking like this, is this good sound? If you hear me talking any other way, please do now, isn't it? Oh, let's have a listen. I wish you told me that sooner. Difficult to ignore. The public facing
Oh my God,
guys. Turn your sound back down now. Properties. The federal file from the platform. And he proved the post-arrest interview he had with Darlene Jones, which I'm looking forward to meeting. Turn your volume down now. He spoke openly about pursuing wealth. You know, it's like I've sat here before like a stunned mullet before I pressed play, and I thought, oh my goodness, yeah. Okay, yeah, I didn't have my echo. So use echo cancellation needs to be on, and I did look down and just see it's not on. All these things you've got to check. I used to have a checklist before I went live. Anyway, so now we've got normal sound and we're 1 hour, 47 minutes in. Thank you so much, Big Rig. You're awesome. Cool. No echo. Yes, good now. So it's good. So when I'm going to read this text again, there'll be no echo on this side.
The commercial units at 189 Orange Avenue in downtown Orlando are particularly interesting because this wasn't simply another property sitting quietly inside Christopher Delgado's portfolio.
Yeah, so this was Goliath HQ, even though we all thought it was the London Club. The London Club was their HQ. Yes, all the flash ladies walking around with the sparkly bottles. No, this was meant to be their HQ. They never got it fitted out. Now, we even went to the person that who got the contract to fit it out, and they did all the designs, and we reached out to them, and they come back and told us that they had contractual obligations to fulfill, and they had designed and done all that, and they were washing their hands, so they must have been paid in advance. But anyway, we found out afterwards that that never happened, because I went into that building to have a look to see if they'd started anything. They ripped out all the walls and there was just a skeleton of the metal bars, but other than that, nothing has happened.
I had already investigated the offices because they formed an important part of the image Goliath Ventures presented to investors. Delgado later discussed the property extensively during his interviews with WFTV investigative reporter Darlene Jones, describing a high-end corporate environment that was intended to bring investors into the Goliath world.
How stupid are we, though? I mean, we have people, like, if we're talking about stupid, Dante comes to mind. He said the only reason he invested is because he thought that Mark James was associated. Mark had thrown his talon way back before we started investigating this. However, because of the association of certain people, and because Christopher turns up in a Rolls-Royce, because Christopher lives in a big flash house in Isleworth, everyone didn't sit here and ask basic questions. Because he was associated to a company called Black Block, they didn't stop to think. They thought Black Block was Black Rock. You know, because they thought, even Dante said that he didn't read the contract that he signed. And I'm not a financial expert, but we did read the contract. In fact, we put the contract into ChatGPT and asked us to highlight the red flags of this contract. And that's why we started investigating this investigation. Why don't people do that? Why do we have to look at somebody's wealth, their car, their watch, their suit, their liposuction bodied with his mummy tuck to believe he's real and genuine and take him on face value? Do we have face value in the world now? No.
The headquarters occupied 4 commercial condominium units, 1800S, 1810S, 1820S and 1870S, together with rights associated with approximately 30 parking spaces. According to the latest federal filing, the property is titled to Habibi HQ LLC, a company controlled by Delgado. But one detail immediately caught my attention. There is no mortgage. The government's filing states that Habibi HQ LLC did not mortgage the Orange Avenue property. That puts the headquarters in a similar position to the Isleworth mansion and makes it potentially much more valuable from an asset recovery perspective than properties carrying enormous outstanding loans.
Yeah, so I wanted to figure out what that word means. So if you didn't know, it means my love, my dear, my darling. And it's a Middle Eastern name. So that was always a bit suspicious for us when we heard that name. It's got connections to the Middle East. But yeah, so that was the company behind that one there. So that finding also takes me back to something Delgado said. So during his post-arrest interviews, Delgado discussed the Goliath headquarters and said approximately $3.2 million had been paid in cash for offices. He described his vision for the space as something much bigger than desks, computers, meeting rooms. It was intended to become an investor hub where people could experience the business, products, lifestyle associated with Goliath. That context matters. Throughout this investigation, I had repeatedly looked at how Goliath established credibility. It wasn't achieved through simple presentations or investment contracts. Investors were surrounded with an ecosystem that appeared to demonstrate success. There were luxury vehicles. There was private travel. There were expensive events. There was the Isleworth mansion. And then there was multi-million-dollar corporate headquarters in downtown Orlando, 189C, Orange Road Avenue. Anyway, when someone walked into an operation surrounded by those things, they weren't simply being told Goliath was successful. They were being shown what appeared to be evidence of that success. Here's the proof in the pudding, in other words. That is why the government
Allegation.
Why do they use ChatGPT uses this word all the time? It's starting to annoy me. The government concerning the source of the money becomes so important. Anyway, that didn't come out quite right. I'm not reading today. I've had enough. I'm going to throw the towel in. I'm just going to get the computer to do it, especially now my sound's back.
The United States now alleges that the defendant properties were paid for with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme. If that allegation is established through the forfeiture process, it fundamentally changes how we should look at assets such as Goliath HQ. Instead of the office proving that Goliath's investment strategy was producing extraordinary wealth, the government is alleging that the money flowing through the underlying fraud helped purchase the very property that could then reinforce the appearance of success. That creates a potentially powerful cycle.
Yeah, money helps create the appearance of wealth. Why does money help create the appearance of wealth? The appearance of wealth creates credibility. Credibility makes the operation easier to believe. And the more money flows, I could see parts of that cycle while investigating. Oops, I'm just going to read. I told you I'm not
I
going to read
could see
anymore.
parts of that cycle while investigating Goliath from the outside. What I couldn't see was the complete financial trail connecting investor money to individual purchases.
Yeah, so that's the gap federal investigators are now beginning to fulfill. There are still debt attached to the headquarters, although they are nothing like the multi-million-dollar mortgages sitting against some of the residential properties. The Plaza South Tower Commercial Condominium Association filed a claim. And this is what we're looking at, the proof of claims coming in, and we're seeing all these amazing claims. Like, I think, am I right, Sue, that Jason Girillo has put a claim in? Did he not get paid either? Filed a claim covering the all 4 units. According to the government's motion, approximately $75,000 is owed in unpaid condominium association dues, interest fees, and attorney costs. Broken down across the 4 units, the recognised amounts are approximately, I'm not going to say all that, but they've added it all up and it's $75,000. Those obligations have to be dealt with from the proceeds if the properties are forfeited and sold. But compared with a property carrying $2 million mortgage, the absence of mortgage debt makes the Orange Avenue headquarters particularly interesting. The question is no longer what Goliath spent creating the offices or Delgado believed is represented. I am definitely not reading anymore. I just cannot do it. Sorry. I don't know why, but it's just not happening in my brain today.
The question is no longer what Goliath spent creating the office or what Delgado believed it represented. The question is what those commercial units will sell for, and how much will remain after legitimate obligations and selling costs are removed. That is the number victims should ultimately care about. There is also something deeply revealing about seeing Goliath HQ appear in a federal forfeiture document. During the height of the operation, the office helped communicate permanence, legitimacy, and success. It was a physical place investors could visit and point to. It made Goliath tangible.
Now, the same offices have become something entirely different. They are assets in the United States once reverted back to money. Yeah, so now the luxury lifestyle wasn't just a decoration. By the time the federal filings reached the houses and the corporate offices, I found myself returning to something that had bothered me throughout this investigation. Extraordinary lifestyle surrounding Goliath Ventures is now was not separated from an investment story. It was part of the story. I'd already spent months examining Delgado's luxury vehicles, including the 2025 stupid friggin' idiot Transformer Lamborghini Revuelto, and the Rolls-Royce, which he sat on top of the bonnet with his suit that was too tight for him, and got photos. I looked at what he said the vehicles cost, and he claimed they were worth. The finance sitting behind them eventually had some of those assets actually produced when they were sold. So what we're getting at here, ladies and gentlemen, is these 2 cars that we're seeing here, the Rolls-Royce Ghost and the Lamborghini. He was claiming that he reckoned that car would get $700,000. It actually sold for $625,000. To buy just the Revuelto is $600,000, but he decided to spend another additional $300,000 on top of that so he could have one exclusive Revuelto car because he thinks he deserved that, even though he was driving around in a 50-year Jubilee something or other Lamborghini. Anyway, let's not go down that track. Long story short, the car was worth nothing. And it had 3,000 miles on the clock. So, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, and then we got down to the Lamborghini, what it cost, and I've just explained all that. And we finished up getting 625. And then the Rolls-Royce, they managed to sell that and get rid of the finance. We did find out why the other Rolls-Royce was in South Carolina, and that was because after partying up with Dante in the whatever they have there in the Mardi Gras, they were driving it home, apparently it hit a curve, damaged the wheel, and they couldn't drive it. So they had to find another way to get home. So they had to leave the Rolls-Royce in South Carolina. Anyway, this Rolls-Royce managed to get $20,000. So from all the recovery of these big flash cars, they got $37,000 back. So you can read that yourself if you really want to. The same principle has now been played out across the real estate portfolio. So we're looking at the $8.5 million mansion. Sound extraordinary until you start examining the taxes, the association, the maintenance, and the selling costs. The multi-million-dollar house can look like an enormous recovery of wealth until you discover the $2 million mortgages sitting behind it. The corporate headquarters can project success while simultaneously carrying unpaid condominium obligations. While this means the assets weren't worthless, quite the opposite. Some of them may ultimately produce substantial recovery. So there is some money there, but not as much money as we all hope. But the importance to the Goliath story went beyond the resale value. They helped create the image. During the post-arrest interviews, Delgado provided an unusual, candid explanation on how he understood that image. He spoke about dealing with wealthy people and the importance that they placed on where someone lived and what they drove and whether they flew privately. His comments suggested that outward displays of success mattered when operating in circles where peoples were being asked to trust someone with significant amounts of money. So that's what it really comes down to. It's all lifestyle marketing, as we've said all the way through this investigation. Christopher was just using lifestyle marketing. So you said, trust me, all these scams that we investigate, we've done over 300 different scam investigations in the last 5 years. They are all built on trust. So if anyone that you know that you haven't seen for a long time is coming to you and suggesting what you do with your money, or maybe even showing you what they've done with their money and how successful it is, they are often talking to you because they want you to build trust in what they were doing. They will get a commission, like these brokers, these people will get a monthly dividends, and then when it all falls over, they will just tell you that they are a victim as well. And that's what happened. That's why we go back to our co-conspirator list quite often, and we say these people have still got your money, and I don't understand why the government's not going after these co-conspirators. Now, I hope in the next few weeks that the government is actually going to charge other people in connection to Goliath Ventures, because Christopher did not build up this empire by himself. Whether he used charities to give himself success, whether he used a car, whether he used a house, whether he used a suit, whether his undies were too tight, it doesn't really matter. They all were there to give the illusion. No one asked the hard questions. Next time somebody wants you to invest, let me talk to them and I'll ask the hard questions for you. We're quite happy to do that. I don't know how I'd get on, but I'll give it a go.
That observation becomes particularly important when placed beside another admission Delgado made about Goliath.
He described the company as having developed something resembling a cool kids club. I'm not going to read that again because I hated that cool club.
He described the company as having developed something resembling a cool kids club around it. In his telling, people in affluent Orlando circles wanted to be involved. Being seen with Delgado mattered. Being invited into Goliath mattered. Knowing that influential people were already participating provided another layer of reassurance.
Another thing my mum taught me, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I don't know how to say it without it sounding disrespectful. Fools are easily parted with their money. Now, is it rich people are easily parted with their money? How do people have so much money that they can invest stuff and then lose all that money to somebody that they haven't, how do you hand over your money? If I don't want something and you want to give it to me and I say I don't want it, does that intensify that you want to give it to me? You know what I mean? Like, is that what Christopher was doing? Christopher said, oh no, I never talked about money with anybody. It was exclusive and it's not available to everybody. Go away, don't give me your money. And all of a sudden you go, but I want to give you my money. Is that how it works? I don't know.
I had been documenting that ecosystem from the outside. The cars, properties, parties, private travel, high-profile associations and elaborate headquarters weren't proof that a fraud was occurring. Luxury itself is not evidence of criminal conduct, and it would be irresponsible to suggest otherwise. But in an investment operation, those things can become extraordinarily persuasive social proof.
Hey, thank you for your comment there. Nice to get some new comments in. Why isn't my thingy working? I'm glad the sound's good now. Hope you're enjoying it. Where did you come from then? You come from X. Look at that. We've got a comment. The federal government in the US don't take a chance at lowering their conviction rate. They won't charge or build a case around someone that they can't 100% convict. Yeah, well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true to a certain degree, you know. I mean, I got some good friends of mine that used to work for the IRS. What do we call them here in New Zealand? Well, yeah, well, let's say the IRS. And they said that they would get told off if they went after a wild goose chase. If they couldn't recover the money they were spending in the investigation, they weren't meant to go after it. So that means, well, who does justice then? You know, if I don't pay $30,000 worth in tax in 2025, then is the investigation going to cost more than $30,000 to go after Danny? And if it is, then Danny gets to go scot-free. That's what I'm hearing. Someone considering handing over $100,000 isn't necessarily looking to be audited. Here we go.
Someone considering handing over $100,000 isn't necessarily looking at audited financial statements when they see the CEO living in Isleworth, arriving in a Lamborghini, traveling privately and operating from multimillion-dollar offices surrounded by other wealthy investors.
Yep, they simply think this must be working. That's exactly what Dante said. That is why the government's latest allegation charges the significance of these assets. So you really got to think about this and see if we can learn next time. We're going to read all that, make my life easier.
Federal prosecutors are now telling the court that the Defendant Properties were paid for with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme. If the money investors were handing over helped finance assets that subsequently reinforced the appearance that Goliath was enormously successful, then the lifestyle becomes more than an interesting side story. It becomes part of understanding how the illusion could sustain itself. And this is where my investigation and the federal investigation approach the same story from different directions. I spent considerable time examining what investors could see. Federal investigators were able to examine where the money actually went.
Yeah. Yeah, where did the money go? So have we figured that out yet? We know where $5 million went in crypto, and that's still sitting there. So, you know.
Those two perspectives are now beginning to meet. The mansion, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce and corporate headquarters once communicated one message: success. The forfeiture records are beginning to tell us what that success actually cost, how much debt sat behind it and, most importantly, whose money the government alleges helped pay for it.
So let's add up all the houses, all the cars, and all the money he actually paid out to get those assets. And just say it's 15 million. Well, let's say it's 28 million. So Chris's lifestyle, we looked at all his assets and we thought he was paying cash for them, and then we started researching them and we thought, well, just in 2025 alone, we could see $25 million worth of jets and lifestyles and parties and the like. So where is the other $300,000? Sorry, 300 million. Did he really pay it to Nick Petrillo? Nick Petrillo was out of pocket $40 million. Remember that in the first civil case that came out? Nick Petrillo was asking the courts to go and fight for him because he was out $40 million in reward money that he was meant to get for pushing people over the cliff and investing in Goliath Ventures. What about Punic Shaw? How much money were you sitting there? We've seen how you've been handling your crypto and paying for things. You're very quiet there sitting there in Tampa, aren't you? Yeah. What about Alex? Bianca, whatever his name is. He's a fitness trainer now driving around in a Lamborghini, which I think he sold to Nick now. Can't afford to make payments anymore. What about Tomo? Tomo, you've had to give up your car. But hear that you had to sell one of your businesses because it wasn't going to flash. I think Dante and his mum helped you out with that one, didn't they? All these people, you've got Stephen Davis who put $50,000 into the choice-press.com. Tried starting himself up as a book publishing company. How'd that work out for you? Using Goliath money to set up their own companies. Not working very well. Anyway, so we've got the mansions, the Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce's corporate headquarters once communicated one message of success. The forfeiture records are now telling us what the success actually cost, how much debt sat behind it, and most importantly, whose money the government alleges helped pay for it. So where is the money? Because it's not in these houses. That's what I want to stress out to you guys today. And we're going to listen to this whole one, what I could see from the outside. Remember, we don't have the microscopes that the government have, but we did microscope quite a lot of things, and we did really well.
What I could see from the outside, there is an important distinction I want to make at this point, because it explains why this latest federal filing is so valuable to me. When I began investigating Goliath Ventures, I did not have access to Christopher Delgado's bank accounts. I couldn't subpoena cryptocurrency exchanges, demand records from financial institutions, or compel employees and business associates to hand over private communications. I didn't have search warrants or a team of federal agents following transactions through the financial system. What I had was open source intelligence, public records, people willing to talk, and a lot of questions.
We got so much criticism, but we managed to figure out stuff that anybody could have theoretically figured out.
So I approached Goliath the same way I approach other investment operations that don't make sense to me. I looked at what investors were being told and compared it with what I could independently verify. I examined the people promoting it, the companies connected to it, the lifestyle being presented, the assets appearing around the operation, and the relationships that seemed to give it credibility.
Then I started following inconsistencies. And this is what we see. There's always a pattern to everything that we investigate. Always.
As the investigation developed, I spoke with investors and people connected to Goliath. I watched presentations and meetings. I documented the promoters and introducers surrounding the operation. I examined social media posts, corporate information, properties, vehicles, and the increasingly elaborate lifestyle associated with Delgado.
When Christopher was in Thailand at the electric festival, we knew that he had paid $150,000 to be there because the guy sitting in the next cubicle had paid $100,000, and he was on the phone to us telling me that he's eyeballing Christopher right now. But this is what this guy was doing at the end of his last hurrah. Spending $150,000 on seats to go to some electric light concert in Thailand. He didn't stop, and that's why we didn't like Darlene Jones' investigation, because it made Christopher look like a failed businessman rather than a fraudster. This interests me with the Christopher expensive lifestyle car.
So one notification. What interested me wasn't simply whether Christopher Delgado owned an expensive car or lived in an expensive house.
I want to understand how Goliath could generate the returns being represented to investors while simultaneously supporting everything else we could see happening. So how did he keep the monster going? In that interview with Darlene Jones, he claimed that he needed $3.5 million a month to keep Goliath Ventures going. He had a bank account that we managed to seize, that had $18 million in it. If we didn't seize that bank account, how many more people would have invested money to keep this scam going? So we had to bring it to a head. And that's why we were working hard behind the scenes, reporting, filling out forms, ringing up people, asking even the complex that was hosting the $9 million party. We rang up that place and we told them, do you realize what you're doing? They wouldn't listen to us. They still took that money. When did they got paid?
That question became more important as the numbers grew. Goliath wasn't presenting itself as a small speculative cryptocurrency project operating from someone's spare bedroom. Hundreds of millions of dollars were eventually involved. There were substantial investor distributions, commissions, salaries, corporate expenses, luxury purchases, and an increasingly expensive public image. Something had to be generating enough genuine profit to support all of that, or something else was happening.
Yeah, at that time there were limits to,
At the time, there were limits to how far I could take that question. I could identify contradictions and warning signs. I could document behavior. I could compare statements made at different times and challenge people directly about what they were promoting.
Yeah, but there is a line between speculating where money came from and proving where it actually came from, where money came from. That line matters. It is one reason I have to say, I'm just going to read this. Sorry.
It is one reason I have always tried to distinguish between what I can document, what a source alleges, what somebody says in an interview, and what has actually been established through court records or regulatory action.
Yeah, the federal investigation had tools I didn't. I would love to have those tools. Some of those tools, like we used some software a wee while ago, and the license for the software is $100,000 a year. I mean, and what we could do with that software would be amazing with my team. But we don't have $100,000 a year to pay on software. But we have
Investigators could obtain banking records. They could trace transactions. They could examine financial accounts that were invisible to the public. They could identify the source of funds used to purchase individual assets and then put those findings before a federal court.
Oh, don't know about that. I haven't seen that one there before, mate. Unhedged, nice to have you here. What do you say? Some guy named, is it Delgado? Supposedly introduced Nick Petrillo to Delgado at London House. They acted like his best friends and ended up swindling this guy and family members from $3 million. That's interesting. Wasn't called Dante, was he? Did I actually read that? Investigators obtained bank records. They could trace transactions. They could examine financial accounts. So we can't do everything that we want they do, but I think we did bloody well with what we had. Open source
That is why
intelligence.
one sentence in this latest filing carries considerably more weight than months of speculation ever could. The defendant properties were paid for with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme.
Yeah, Christopher's actual words. I don't even know if I need to bring them up again, but I can't help myself. But I do think, which we should have kept up, we'll just bring that back. But, you know, when we produced our little wee book in here, that quote, you know, this here is the quote that will stick with me probably until I die. But their money was being used for distributions, used for corporate events, and used for personal spend. And Christopher said that without even, battling an eyelid, to be honest. And if you want the full breakdown of those videos, remember when you go to my YouTube channel, you actually have a playlist. And in the playlist, you will actually see that we have somewhere in here, Goliath Ventures, the full playlist. And you'll see all the videos that we have done on every breakdown. So if you go back to here, you'll get a summary. Then you'll get the first, second, and third, fourth, and fifth interview, all of when Christopher was being interviewed by Darlene Jones. And we've put our 2 cents worth in there as well. But we currently have 88 videos in this investigation. And if you go back to the very first video, listen to this for my first. This is September the 3rd, this video. Private jets, luxury villas, celebrity photo ops. And now, a flashy scholarship at a major business conference. It looks like success, but behind the scenes, it's nothing more than a house of cards. 4 days ago, I emailed the founder directly, asked some simple questions. The response? Silence. Not just silence, the kind of silence that's so loud it echoes off the marble floors of his rented villa. Here's what some investors are saying. I receive payments every month. It can't be a scam. But that's exactly how every Ponzi works. Yeah, so I look back at that thing. I think I've got more facial hair now. Put my heart and soul into that. And that was our first investigation. And we did hear back from Matt Burke, who said he was going to get back to us. And we're still waiting to hear back from you, Matt. So I didn't have the evidence required to make that statement when I first started looking at the mansions and the offices. The United States has, and that is precisely why I find this stage of the investigation so fascinating.
Fascinating.
Doesn't look like that word to me. I can go back through the things I questioned from the outside and compare them to the investigation eventually found once they got inside the financial records. Sometimes the federal evidence confirms the direction my research had already been taken. Sometimes it provides information I could have never obtained independently. And occasionally my investigation went somewhere the criminal case was never designed to go, examining how the operation was promoted, who helped create its credibility, how the lifestyle was presented, and why ordinary investors believed what they were seeing. Those are different forms of investigations. The government ultimately has to establish evidence capable of surviving the court. My job is to keep asking the questions that people handed over their money should have been asking much earlier. Now, for the first time, we can put some of the answers side by side. So what I'm basically saying in this blog, ladies and gentlemen, is that the government has to do things one way. We do things one other way. We got threatened by them. We got an offer of $150,000 to take down my videos. I got people knocking on my door after they hired private investigators to stake out and find out where I live. They staked out my neighborhood. They knocked on my door and they wanted to offer me a much larger deal. I told them that I would be happy to listen to the deal if I could record it. They wouldn't let me record the deal. And these guys, I yelled at them all the way down my drive. And one day I'll play that video when I don't give away where I live. But what I'm saying is here, we had two sorts of investigations going. We started the investigation with Homeland Security. We rung them up. They were struggling to get jurisdiction to do the investigation because they were based out of New Jersey. Once they started investigating, they realized how large this investigation was, and they finished up having to get other organizations involved. We found victims who wouldn't want to speak on camera. And remember, the big one, if you haven't seen it, is remember CoffeeZilla. CoffeeZilla is an unsung
lawsuit
hero.
against Danny got dropped in full. And this is where I really have to say, I have no clue, honestly, how much or little of my whistleblower report was used. I give full credit to the team who actually investigated and charged Chris for chasing down the facts. However, what I do know is that Danny was a massive help to everyone. The amount of information this guy dug up, along with his team he calls the Avengers, is just staggering, and I really have to give them credit. But honestly, if it hadn't been for me trying to get this whistleblower report, this video probably wouldn't have existed. I would have dropped the case for sure. It was only chasing down those last things, trying to prove this, even though I knew there was really nothing I could do, that drove me to get to this point. And given that Danny was such a huge part of that, I'll link his Ko-fi account if you want to support his work. He didn't ask me to say this. I'm doing it because I happen to know that financially he's not doing amazing. Let's just say investigative journalism, when you're being sued, is not very easy and you need lots of support. But honestly, this whole thing felt surreal, and I knew such a huge part of that. I'll link his
The thing is, like, I woke up this morning and somebody had donated 100 cups of coffee, towards the work that we do. Well, I'm not going to share it with the Avengers, but I need it to survive. But at the time, Ko-fi, I had 54 supporters, 54 people who supported me on Ko-fi. The morning that he dropped that video into his Patreon account, somebody donated $2,000. I think it was CoffeeZilla. And I even asked him afterwards. I actually only asked him about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's never replied to me about that. But thank you to everyone that supported us. It actually got me out of every time we go into this investigation, I get myself into debt. I sell a website that I create. I do drop shipping, and I get myself out of debt. Then I go back into debt. But that there was absolutely amazing. So what I'm saying is thank you to all those people that have donated. It certainly makes a huge difference. And going from 54 supporters, we now have 1,177 supporters. And not only that, this morning, as I mentioned earlier on, when I woke up, somebody had kindly donated 100 cups of coffee. And it's, it's just so generous. And I just want to say thank you. But, what I'm getting at here is the way that we investigate things is one way. And the way that the government investigates things is another way. If we waited for the federal investigators to provide court documents, a lot more people would have been hurt. I believe I'm very vulnerable, and I believe that our investigations actually are, and I'm not ringing my own bell, but we take a lot more risk. I don't have a government to fall back on if I get this wrong. I have a burning desire to help people who have been scammed. So if you want to reach out to us and you aren't sure about something, hire us. You can do so on my Ko-Fi account. You can go to our shop. You can buy books that will help you from getting scammed, booklets, guides. And you can also hire us to sponsor a review. So if you're investing in something and you're unsure, $500 helps towards the work we do. And if you want to even talk to me for an hour, you can book me. You can do it interviews, express chat, whatever you want to do. You can support the work that we are doing to help the investments that you are doing if you want. We're not going to give you the thumbs up and tell you to go invest money, but we will highlight all the red flags that we see in any opportunity. Goliath Ventures had big red flags. It took one contract, and this was dodgy as hell. But anyway, so the federal investigations sees different than we do, but I believe they've come late to the party. But let's have a read and let's see what the federal investigators could see that we couldn't see, because that's
What
important.
federal investigators could see. The federal investigation could go where mine couldn't. Once investigators gained access to the financial records behind Goliath Ventures, they were no longer trying to work backwards from photographs of Lamborghinis, property records, social media posts, investor accounts and public statements. They could examine the transactions themselves and begin establishing where the money originated, where it moved and what it was ultimately used to purchase.
So in 2024, I went to the Global Financial Crime Summit. I still have to read that off the card. And I met 150 other people like myself. And I'm about to do something very similar in a few months' time, which I'm really looking forward to. And they showed us how people money launder on the internet, on crypto. And they showed us how Smurfs put money into, Smurfs are people that take cash and put it into crypto. And they watched $22 million being put into crypto that sat there and did nothing. And it was stockpiling monies. They said they didn't know whether it was going to be used for terrorist events or wars. But they said often they'll see money going into crypto and sitting there doing nothing. Well, one thing I learned, they said that they reverse engineer, they follow the money backwards. And that's literally what we do. Who paid for that Lamborghini? How did they make that transaction? Where did that money come from? And that's how we did our investigation. So it's interesting watching the federal findings of this sort of stuff.
August 6th forfeiture motion gives us another glimpse into the results of that work. According to the government, the properties were purchased using proceeds traceable to the wire fraud scheme. Prosecutors are seeking forfeiture under federal laws covering property derived from wire fraud and property involved in monetary transactions using criminally derived proceeds. But the document also reveals something else that is important.
So Christopher Delgado has consented to the forfeiture. Now, there is other properties that people haven't consented yet, which are associated, and we've got those mentioned as well.
The filing records that Delgado signed a plea agreement agreeing to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, substantive wire fraud and money laundering. It states that on June 30th, 2026, he entered his guilty plea and that the court accepted the plea and adjudicated him guilty.
Yeah, so what you might not realise, Christopher had 30 bank accounts. We actually shut down 2 Bank of America bank accounts. I say we shut them down, we just highlighted what was going on to the banks and they actually shut them down. I don't have the ability to shut people's bank accounts down. But when you realise, and also we knew way back early on that the banks have been subpoenaed to provide over the banking records. We knew that well before Christopher was actually even allegedly helping with this investigation. And I do have a whole lot of other thoughts in my head. Is if this investigation, just 2 days ago, we had 2 new documents sent out. People were told that they should, this document that we're talking about right here was released, and also they were confirming that he's going to be sentenced on the 21st of October. So we had 2 new documents just in the last, I think it's 48 hours, 24 hours actually. So they must be still investigating this. There's still a lot of activity around them. But everybody I've been speaking to goes, any updates? And I'm going, well, I'm hoping that Nick Petrillo, I'm hoping that Matt Burks is going to be formally charged for their connection. I'm hoping that the 27 co-conspirators are going to be charged for their connection as well. But the reality, don't really know. So let's just see what they're investigating now, because at the moment, this document is basically putting a bow on the property. We've already had a bow on the vehicles. So what's left now? They're sort of bringing closure to everything that they've allegedly tried to claim back for the Goliath Ventures estate to repay the victims, asking the victims to put in victim statements. Don't really know. And somebody just poured me a cup of coffee. That is not me urinating. That is me. Somebody just bought me a cup of coffee. So thank you very much for that donation. Right there, I can hear it. I don't know if you heard that. Anyway,
as part of that agreement, Delgado consented to forfeiture of the assets included in the civil forfeiture proceeding.
Delgado, thank you very much. A $5 donation from Daigo. That's lovely. I like that.
As part of that agreement, Delgado consented to forfeiture of the assets included in the civil forfeiture proceeding.
Yeah. All right, let's go and read
That consent extends beyond properties held personally in his name. According to the filing, Delgado also consented in his capacity as manager of Habibi HQ LLC and Habibi Holdings LLC, the entities holding the downtown Orlando commercial units and the Bal Harbour Drive property.
Yeah, so we were following those quite a lot. I couldn't really figure out why is it, I don't know why in America, it seems like everyone sets up a company for everything they buy. Like in New Zealand, I had one company and I put everything under that company. I have different bank accounts. But is there a reason? Is it all tax implications?
This matters because earlier in my investigation, corporate entities were another layer that had to be researched individually.
Yeah, and we did that. Every time, we had a list. If you go back to my book in here, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm not going to do that again, Danny, but let's go to page 175. We actually went through all the people that were, you can get this book. And this was what we started doing. We've got to finish it. But we actually put, with our co-conspirators, we actually went through and found, Goliath Ventures, obviously Gen Ventures, and then he renamed it Goliath Ventures. And then we've got these companies that Christopher was associated with too. Now we've got, and I tell you what I reckon is going to happen, guys. My hunch, my feeling is that they're going to actually go after 21 Ventures, which there's 2 companies. There's 21 W-O-N, and then there's different spellings. So we've got 21 Sales and Consulting, and then you've got 21 Holdings, 21 Ventures. Oh, thank you very much. That popped up on the screen. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. That's a donation coming in. I don't know why it didn't make a sound, actually. I wonder what was going on there. Normally it makes a sound. Maybe because I was talking. Have I got the wrong button down? No. Hold up. Right. Some sound's not playing up today. I'm just going to see if we can get that right. But anyway, you can see the different companies. My computer's might be playing up there. Sorry about that. Am I still got sound? I've still got sound. It's just not working out good today, my sound. Anyways, you can see as we've gone through here, we've actually tried to associate and that's the other one, Jason Newton. We know that he's been investigated by the Canadian investigators. So that's what we're trying to do. So we haven't actually gone through it. I will update this as we get it. The book is going to be something that's updated live. We're hoping it's going to be a manuscript, maybe for a movie one day. But what we're getting at is, as these names, as the court documents come out, we're going to actually associate companies to people's names, which will make this document a bit more interesting. So that's what we started doing the other day, and we'll build on that as time goes on. Anyway, let's see if I can get this sound going.
A property might be associated publicly with Christopher Delgado or Goliath Ventures, but the name appearing on the title could be something entirely different. That meant following LLCs, addresses, corporate records, and the people controlling them to understand how the pieces connected.
Yeah, federal investigations weren't able to go much further than we could.
The latest filing doesn't simply identify who appears on the title. It starts resolving what happens to the ownership interests themselves.
You know, I'm looking at Chris here, and I thought he must be kicking himself right now. I mean, looked like he had a happy family. I've seen other photos of Andy Delgado. She seems like a nice person appearance-wise. He's got 2 boys that are of his own. He's got 1 adopted child. For the sake of a few parties for 3 years, he's thrown his life away. And now he's also destroyed so many other families by encouraging people to invest. And also the people that believed in him, as we were talking about with Dante the other day, he talked about Christopher being like a cult leader or a Christ-like figure that had disciples that followed him no matter what. We call them co-conspirators. Dante, I always get his name wrong. He talks about them as disciples that would follow Christopher off a cliff loyally. But imagine, I didn't see any remorse when Christopher was being interviewed by Darlene. In fact, he was told at the time that was he aware that someone had died by suicide who invested and lost all their money to his, and he didn't even flinch. So he's now got to spend the next, hopefully, I don't believe he's going to get 50 years, but let's say 50 years in prison, reflecting on his life, his 3 years of life he lived like a king, knowing he's thrown away and destroyed so many other people's lives.
The property at 141 S Phelps Avenue is jointly owned by Christopher and Andy Delgado. According to the motion, Andy consented on July 13, 2026 to forfeiture of her interest in that property.
So even she's not going to have a family house anymore.
But another property tells us why we need to be careful about assuming every asset has reached the same stage.
Here we go. Now this is one that you may not
The
heard
government specifically says this consent motion does not include 746 Cavan Drive because co-owner Andy Delgado has not consented to its forfeiture. That doesn't mean the government has abandoned Cavan Drive, nor does this document establish what will ultimately happen to it.
Yeah, so that's the property there. And so she hasn't given that up. Is that the right one? Have I got the right one? Do I need to go one more? One more. So let's have a listen.
New donation from 21.
21. 21 Ventures. I think I know who that is. Thank you very much. I've lost my photo. Where's my photo of her? I've stuffed it up now, haven't I? Doesn't include. Why have I lost? Where's my picture? So I've lost my way now. Oh yeah, no, we must be getting close. So we must be going back up one, and she must be here somewhere. What have I done? Sorry guys, I've lost my way. Oh, there we are. She come back. Oh, it is that one. Yeah. So okay. So why is that? You may be asking. Well, I'll tell you in a minute.
That doesn't mean the government has abandoned Cavan Drive, nor does this document establish what will ultimately happen to it. It means exactly what the filing says. This particular motion does not resolve that property. That distinction is important because forfeiture isn't simply a matter of federal agents identifying an expensive house and taking it. Ownership interests, mortgages, taxes, associations and third-party claims all have to be addressed through a legal process.
The government has been doing exactly that. According to the filing, notice of forfeiture action was published on the government's official forfeiture website at least 30 consecutive days beginning May 2024. Sorry, yeah, the 24th of May. You say it backwards. 2026. The deadline of filing claims expired on July the 23rd. Now, I don't actually know what I've just said there, whatever that means. Hopefully somebody more intelligent than me can understand. Mortgage lenders and associates were identified. Some filed formal claims. Others missed
New
the
donation
deadline.
from Andy is AB Itchy.
AB Itchy. God, dude, legal interest. If I got other messages, oh, here we go. There's some other chat room going on here. What have we got here? Oh, so she's not a nice person. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Oh, she's not a nice person. Well, maybe that's why Christopher decided to get himself 8 new girlfriends over the period since he left her. Maybe that's why they've been battling in the courtrooms for 2 years trying to work out their divorce hearings. Maybe that was a payoff for her, trying to figure out how to get away from him. She decided that she wanted a house. Who knows what was really going on? According to the filing, notice forfeiture actions published, blah, blah, blah. Mortgage lenders and associates identified, but I'm not very good at reading. I'm not very good at reading often, but let's carry on.
But the government has nevertheless agreed to recognise legitimate interests, where appropriate, rather than attempt to eliminate them on a procedural technicality. That approach tells us something about the objective of this stage of the case. The government isn't simply trying to accumulate houses.
I think it's been quite interesting. One thing I have noticed when reading through the court documents is that the government seem, or the people, the repo people, use of the better word, they actually seem really like practical. They seem to make good sound decisions. They don't hang on to assets hoping they were going to go up in value. They basically market them and get the best price available in the current market and then sell them.
It wants to clear the legal obstacles, sell the properties and determine the genuine equity remaining inside them.
They probably realise that these assets don't hold their value, and the sooner you sell them, the more money you can get in.
The filing says there appears to be ample equity in the properties to satisfy recognised third-party interests, and explains that moving the assets through forfeiture and sale will help maximise the potential recovery for victims. Those words matter. For months, investors could only look at the assets surrounding Goliath Ventures and wonder how much money might still be there.
Yeah, I don't think there's much there, guys. I mean, after we read this, we actually had a meeting with the Avengers, and we're all quite disheartened. And that's why it would be fair to say, I don't know if I've got it handy, but when you look at the photo, the image, let's see if I can find it in a hurry, that I was not looking the best. Download Goliath. Yeah, this one here. Can that bring it up? Yeah, here I was scratching my head, thinking, where did the money go? Investors, 328 million. Luxury assets, real estate, question mark, dead end. Cars, we know there's only $37,000. You know, where did the money go? So has anyone got any ideas? Well, we've found $5 million. If anyone wants $5 million and you're in the government and you want to take the credit for it, we'll give you the addresses. Well, we already have given you the information, but why is that $5 million sitting there? Federal investigators can now start answering the questions with actual numbers, but even now the headline value of the property portfolio is not the number of victims should be watching. Is not the number of victims should be watching. The number that matters comes from everyone else with a legitimate claim being paid. And that's where the next part of this investigation began. So this is the question, what happened to the money? So let's listen to this.
This is the point where the impressive property values become much less important than the numbers sitting underneath them.
Yep, the court grants the government, read that.
If the court grants the government's motion and the properties are forfeited and sold, the headline sale prices will not represent what is ultimately available for victims. Before we get anywhere near that figure, mortgages, taxes, homeowners association claims, condominium fees and the costs associated with maintaining and selling the properties have to be dealt with.
Yeah, so it makes it pretty clear, this new filing, that the process is remarkably clear what they do with the money and how the process works.
The government is asking for authority to pay expenses associated with the seizure, maintenance, custody, publication, marketing and sale of the properties. It also recognises the interests of mortgage lenders, tax authorities and property associations. In several instances, the government has even agreed to recognise legitimate debts where the creditor failed to file a timely formal claim.
Thank you for joining the channel, mate. Really appreciate it. I don't know how to thank you. I just don't know why it hasn't popped up on the screen. Oh, there we go. Not ban. I did that accidentally to someone the other day. They signed up, donated money to me, and then I banned them accidentally. That just shows my gratitude, doesn't it, really? Howie Stern, not the real Howie Stern, but Howie Stern's in there. Thank you very much for your joining the channel. You know, I think a saying that comes to mind is CoffeeZilla says crime pays. It seems like the criminals have more money than the people exposing them. Yeah, I think I read that. I can't remember if I read that anymore. But anyway, that means the calculation victims should be watching is not the complicated, not, oh, wow, just not.
That means the calculation victims should be watching is not complicated in principle. Sale price minus legitimate debts and costs equals the equity that can actually be recovered.
I think it's pretty sad, this. I think that's probably why Mamone...
The difficulty is that we don't yet know all of those final numbers.
I do know one thing, though, and that is that all the money that we see spent on these luxury assets and shit that Christopher thought he had to have in his life isn't going to add up to giving anyone any decent relief who's put their life savings into this too good to be true opportunity. That's what I'm seeing.
Take 141S Phelps Avenue. Before considering selling costs or other recognized obligations, approximately $2.052 million is already claimed under the mortgage. At Pawnee Trail, approximately $896,949 is recognized. Bal Harbour carries approximately $533,997 in mortgage obligations.
Yeah, I'm just reading Howie's, whoever Howie's, not the real Howie. Like I said before, unfortunately, only the victims that went to the grand jury might get something. The rest will never get no money back. You know, I've been doing this so long now that I have actually never seen anyone get any money back from an investment. Nothing substantial. Nothing that I can go, wow. You know, like the first scam I ever went after was Hyperverse, $1.9 billion scam. Just recently, BG Wealth Sharing, I believe it was a $1 billion scam. We actually managed to seize, I think it was 41, I've forgotten now, I think it was $41.5 million worth of money on the blockchain. Don't even know if that gets back to them or it just gets locked inside the blockchain. But we managed to seize that through OKX and Coinbase. But I've never seen anyone get their money back, you know, real money, without having to spend a life fortune doing it, you know what I mean? So what have we got here? So interest continues accumulating on those debts until they are resolved. Compare those properties with the Isleworth Mansion and the Orange Avenue units, which the filing identifies as having no mortgage. These assets immediately become much more interesting. So let's have a listen.
Isleworth still has approximately $86,725 in unpaid property taxes and assessments, together with roughly $12,380 owed to the Community Association. The Orange Avenue units have approximately $74,890 in condominium association obligations. There will also be expenses associated with holding and eventually selling the properties.
Yeah, so there is some money there. And yes, we have discovered five, I say we, but I say we as I'm the bus driver here, so I'm Danny. But we've got other Avengers that have actually discovered $5 million sitting in crypto, which seems to be sitting there doing nothing. And we believe it's money associated with Goliath Ventures. And also we've tracked these wallet addresses. So there's $5 million. Now, I think $5 million would be a considerable amount of money to recover for victims after reading the cars and the property money. And you do wonder if they are going to go after it. Why leave it there for someone to hide it, you know? Yeah. And also, when this scam first raised its ugly head, we did see a stampede of lawyers putting their hand up to help people with their losses. So not only does the government potentially win, the lawyers often do as well, don't they?
But there isn't a multimillion-dollar mortgage sitting in front of the remaining equity. That potentially makes these two assets particularly important to victim recovery.
Yep, maybe.
It also takes me straight back to what happened when I investigated Delgado's luxury vehicles. When I first looked at the Lamborghini Revuelto, the numbers surrounding it sounded enormous. Delgado had talked about hundreds of thousands of dollars in modifications and believed the finished vehicle could be worth between $700,000 and $800,000. The government eventually accepted $625,000 for it.
Yeah. So I think they made, it was ridiculous. They didn't make any money. Oh, here it is here. After the secured financial interest and obligations were dealt with, only about $20,000 remained in net proceeds for the government. Isn't that just ridiculous?
That experience completely changed the way I look at the asset recovery side of this investigation.
I don't care what someone says a mansion is worth. I don't care what a Lamborghini actually cost. I don't care how impressive a corporate headquarters looked. When investigators walked through the doors, I want to know what was left when it was sold. And that's how we should look at all this stuff. This is the only number that ultimately matters to victims. You know, and it's just another day in the office for the Avengers, but come on, guys.
The federal government appears to be approaching the properties from the same practical direction. In its motion, prosecutors say there appears to be ample equity to satisfy the recognized third-party interests, and explain that resolving those interests without unnecessary litigation will allow the properties to be sold, thereby maximizing the potential recovery for victims. That wording is important because it tells us what this stage of the case is really about. The government isn't collecting Christopher Delgado's property portfolio to make a point. It is attempting to convert physical assets back into money.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a big party that someone has had and the cleaners come in and clean up all the rubbish and make it look like no one's been there before. So the cleaners are the receivers, and they're just going through trying to find any bottles of champagne that's been left unopened. And they're trying to sell the tables back that they didn't hire. Oh, they did hire. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden you see all these flash fountains and you see all these flash ornaments and whatever they are. And then they realize that this company decided to buy the tables instead of hire the tables. Well, they hired the tables and now there's no money left because it's got to go back to the hire company. All this sort of carry on, isn't it? And for the people who invested in Goliath Ventures, that creates another part of this story that I intend to follow closely. When these properties actually sell, I want to compare what they appeared to be worth during the height of Goliath Ventures and what they actually returned after the financial reality was stripped away. We've already done that with the cars, and now we're going to do it with the houses and the offices. Only then will we begin to understand how much of the extraordinary wealth surrounding Goliath Ventures was actually recoverable wealth, and how much of it was simply an expensive appearance. So now we're going to go back to the property that hasn't been resolved. And there's one property mentioned in the August 6th filing that deserves its own attention precisely because the government is not asking the court to deal with this motion. And that is the property of Calvin Drive. The government specifically states that a consistent motion for a judge of forfeiture does not. I'm not going to read it very good if I carry on. So
the government specifically states that its consent motion for judgment of forfeiture does not include Calvin Drive because Andy Delgado, a co-owner of the property, has not consented to its forfeiture.
Maybe she's in denial. Maybe she's looking for a new sugar daddy.
That immediately separates it from 141S Phelps Avenue, another property jointly owned by Christopher and Andy Delgado. According to the filing, Andy signed a consent on July 13, 2026 agreeing to forfeiture of her interest in the Phelps Avenue property. Calvin Drive is different, and this is where I need to be careful not to read more into the document than it actually says.
Yeah. What did I do wrong there? I'm sorry I'm not reading this very well, guys, but I just think it's important to get it into interest in the property. So I'm just going to... So that's interesting. What she signed?
Andy signed a consent on July 13th, 2026 agreeing to forfeiture of her interest in the Phelps Avenue property. Calvin Drive is different, and this is where I need to be careful not to read more into the document than it actually says. The filing does not tell us why Andy Delgado has not consented. It does not establish that she is challenging the government's underlying allegations, and it does not tell us what ultimately happens to the property.
Right.
It simply establishes that Cavan Drive remains outside this particular consent motion, because one of its owners has not agreed to forfeiture. That makes it an unresolved part of the asset story.
So she'll still have to have some sort of income, won't she? And she's probably at two minds thinking, where am I going to live? One has become accustomed to living in a nice house.
Throughout the Goliath investigation, I have learned that these distinctions matter. It is very easy to look at a long list of seized or targeted assets and assume they all occupy the same legal position. They don't.
Yep, they don't.
Some properties are owned personally by Christopher Delgado. Others sit inside companies he controlled. Some have mortgages. Some were purchased without mortgages. Some have substantial third-party claims. Some owners have consented to forfeiture.
Forfeiture. And in the case, is it Calvin Drive?
Cavan.
Cavan Drive. One co-owner has not. The government will therefore have to deal with that property separately if it intends to continue pushing forfeiture. That is something I will be watching. There is also a broader reason this matters, and here we go.
As the Goliath Ventures case moves from criminal prosecution into forfeiture, bankruptcy and victim recovery, some of the most important developments may no longer arrive with dramatic announcements. They may appear in paragraphs like this one: a property excluded from emotion, an ownership interest that remains contested, a mortgage balance that changes, or an asset that eventually sells for far less or far more than expected.
Those details determine the final recovery. So while 6 properties are now moving through the consent forfeiture process, the Calvin Drive remains an open question. And until another court filing answers it, that's exactly how I intend to describe it. Yeah, I'm just wondering if everyone's come to terms with actually what's actually happened. I'm going to read this whole section together. These sections are really, really cool. And I obviously use AI to help create these articles. But when I'm reading them back, it's friggin' fantastic. I listen to this over and over again in my ear while I go to bed, hoping I've covered everything. I still can't read them, but I certainly agree with the sentiments of a lot of the investigation. What we basically did is got that letter, the 17-page letter, asked it to cross-reference our investigation with the actual findings from the federal investigation and see where we did well, where we could have done better, or even how our investigations are different. So I have found this interesting myself because I don't think we were that far off the mark, if any, with our investigation. And we didn't have the bank account evidence or the subpoenas or the questions. We've never questioned Christopher Delgado, but we've basically haven't had the cover of the jigsaw puzzle that we've been building, but the picture's, in my opinion, the same.
Christopher Delgado has already agreed to give them up. There is another important reason this August 6th filing carries more weight than an ordinary government attempt to seize disputed assets. Christopher Delgado has consented to the forfeiture. The filing traces that consent back to his criminal case. According to the government's motion, Delgado signed a plea agreement in which he agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, substantive wire fraud and money laundering. As part of that agreement, he also consented to forfeiture of the assets included in this civil forfeiture proceeding. The document states that Delgado appeared before the court on June 30, 2026, entered his guilty plea, and that the court has accepted the plea and adjudicated him guilty. That changes the context considerably. When I first began investigating Goliath Ventures, almost everything had to be approached as a question. Where was the money being invested? How were the returns being generated? Who was receiving commissions? What role did the people surrounding Delgado actually play? How were the luxury assets being funded? And, perhaps most importantly, what would happen if the money stopped flowing? Those questions became progressively more serious as the operation unraveled. Now we are reading federal court documents after Delgado has pleaded guilty to the offences at the centre of the case and agreed to surrender assets the government says were purchased with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme. There is an important distinction here. A consent to forfeiture is not the same thing as Delgado individually admitting every factual allegation the government has made about every property, but it does mean he is no longer fighting to retain the assets covered by this motion. His plea agreement and subsequent consent allow the government to ask the court to move those properties towards forfeiture and eventual sale. This
is what really gets me. Christopher, they've said, oh, look, we've found you guilty. I know you're a successful man and all that, but we're asking for all those assets back. Christopher goes, yep, have them all back. But really, can you imagine if he tried to put up a barrier and said, no, that I've built those over years of me being a successful businessman. Nothing about Christopher is successful. He's been lying. He's been a fraudster from day one. Nothing has he done to gain his wealth. He's if anything worked in a job, come out with $200,000 or $300,000 and then invested it in some crypto maybe and made some money. But everything else he's been doing is playing with the Ponzi scheme market, even NLP, taking investors' funds and investing it in a Ponzi scheme and then getting the dividends and using the dividends to pay the investor who thought they were investing in him. So, no wonder he's just sat there and said, take the lot. But imagine if he tried to say they're my assets, so I'm going to fight you for them. You'd have to prove that he didn't get these assets from Goliath's investors' money. And all the way through, that's exactly what he's done. He's just used everyone else. And that's why all these co-conspirators mean so much to myself and the Avengers, because we see them living the lifestyle. And even, let's just use Andy as an example. The fact is that she doesn't want to give up the house she's living in by the sounds of it, because she's become accustomed to the lifestyle. She's become accustomed to the $20,000 cash she used to get from Chris every month, on top of all her bills being paid, and she doesn't want to give it up. So maybe these other co-conspirators need to be forced to give up their lifestyle. But that's why I'm dying. I'm busting for the next person that's going to get charged. Hopefully it's round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5. Every time there's a new document served out there about somebody getting charged, to me, it's like, are they going to clean this up? Are they going to look for the $5 million that we've found on the blockchain? Not the $1 billion that Jonathan Mason claims he's seen. Are they going to clean up? Are they actually going to do a proper cleanup? Or have they just thrown Chris under the bus and everyone else gets to walk? Because that's where you start doubting yourself, isn't it? I don't think so. We believe there's still active investigations. There's still documents being filed just about on a daily basis. So let's hope. But I can't wait to see whether it's Nick Petrillo, Matt Burks, Jonathan Mason.
His consent also reaches beyond property held directly in his own name. The filing says Delgado executed the consent both personally and as manager of Habibi HQ LLC and Habibi Holdings LLC. Those companies hold 2 significant parts of the portfolio we have just examined. Habibi HQ LLC owns the downtown Orlando commercial units, while Habibi Holdings LLC owns the Bal Harbour Drive property. That corporate structure is something I would have had to piece together from public records. During an independent investigation, the federal process can now cut through it.
Another thing that we haven't heard about, well, unless I'm missing it, is the Dubai stuff. So we've heard that Chris had 18 Rolex watches. We know that all his Louis Vuitton pool tables. We don't know how much that went for, but all those other material assets, the apartment, wasn't there a black Ferrari in Dubai? Wasn't there 2 apartments in Dubai? Like, we haven't heard anything about those either. And we heard that we can't prove that there was 50 to 100 Rolex watches. And this was what they were using to trade with. We were trying to question Dante the other day whether he was actually, wheeling and dealing with Rolex watches, that you could go into a Rolex dealer and give over and he'd give you a crypto in return for it. I don't know. That's what we would ask him. He denied it, and I don't think there's any truth in that. But there is money in Dubai, and there is money in those watches, and we haven't had closure on those yet, have we? So maybe there's a bit of money there. Who knows? But was he transferring all the Goliath Ventures wealth over to Dubai?
The government is asking the court to extinguish the existing ownership interests in the 6 properties, recognise the legitimate interests of lenders, tax authorities and associations, and ultimately vest clear title in the United States so the assets can be sold.
Yeah, and as Susie just said in the chat room, we still want to know why Dante claims that he's a victim of Goliath Ventures but hasn't put in a proof of claim.
For me, this is another point where the story has come a long way from the investigation I was conducting while Goliath Ventures was still presenting an image of extraordinary success.
Back then, I was trying to understand who owned what. Now the question is becoming what will be left once it's sold. And there's even a bigger question that really matters. The government says these sales are intended to maximise the potential recovery for victims. There's not much money there, is there? That means the mansions, the offices, the other properties are gradually being transformed into symbols of Christopher Delgado's wealth into something much more measurable. Why are they becoming numbers on a recovery ledger? For victims of Goliath Ventures, that is where the value of the latest filing really lies. So the investigation has come in a full cycle. When I first started investigating Goliath Ventures back in 1st of September, I was looking at the operation from the outside. I could see the wealth. I could document the people surrounding it, Christopher Delgado. I could follow the companies, the properties, the luxury vehicles, listen to what investigators were being told, examine the promoters were saying, and compare those claims with information available through public records. What I couldn't see was the complete money trail. That is what makes the latest federal filing so significant, what it does for the Avengers. On the 6th of August 2026, consent motion for judgment of forfeiture of defendant real properties. That didn't sound quite right.
August 6th, 2026 consent motion for judgment of forfeiture of defendant real properties.
I wasn't far off. Doesn't simply give us another list of assets. It allows us to revisit things I'd already investigated and look at them with information that simply wasn't available to me at the time. The Isleworth mansion was no longer simply an extraordinary home I watched Delgado walk through while explaining his lifestyle to Darlene Jones. We now know from the government filings that it was purchased with cash, and we even know where the cash came from. Carried no mortgage and had accumulated unpaid taxes and associated obligations. The downtown Orlando headquarters is no longer simply a multi-million-dollar office Delgado said had been purchased for approximately $3.2 million in cash and designed as an investor hub. And that was purchased from Mark James. The government confirms the commercial unit held by Abeti HQ had no mortgage, while identifying almost $75,000 of condominium association obligations. So it had a little bit of debt, but nothing really. Other properties revealed a different reality. I can't pronounce that name, but I think I have to say it.
Phelps Avenue
carried approximately $2 million worth of mortgage obligations. And then you've got other ones that were $900,000 worth. Bale Harbour, $533,000 worth. And Bale Flister has a mortgage whose outstanding balance wasn't in the filing. So adding all that up, just at first glance, $3.5 million. I'm going to say $4.2 million worth of debt on some of those properties that we looked at. And we went through and found them all here. 740, 1.150, and that was the house that has been handed over. That was a 3.4. We looked at the video of the house. This one, another one, 1.6. To actually sit here and say that we think there's around about $4 million worth of debt in those houses, it doesn't leave much change. So that's why our question is, where did the money go? Piece by piece, the image becomes a balance sheet, but the most important development isn't the debt. It is what the government says about the money used to acquire the properties in the first place. And we're going to read that paragraph.
The defendant properties were paid for with proceeds of the wire fraud scheme.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? So Christopher was using investment funds to buy those houses. It wasn't like he was investing in his own company with his own wealth. He was literally stealing the money as it came in. Investors weren't aware of it. That is something I could never have established conclusively from the outside. So it's once we've received this information, we can now see that our suspicions are real.
I could question how the wealth was being generated. I could document the extraordinary spending. I could investigate the corporate structures and ownership records. I could examine whether the image being presented to investors was consistent with what I was discovering elsewhere.
If it looks too good to be true, it often isn't. Federal investigators could follow the money. That's exactly what they could do.
That difference is worth acknowledging because independent investigations and criminal investigations serve different purposes. The government had access to evidence I could never obtain through open source intelligence, banking information, financial records, and the ability to trace funds through transactions.
I remember being really excited when we were corresponding with somebody at the Bank of America. It was actually on LinkedIn. And they come back and went, whoa. And then they said that account has $100 million worth of transactions in it. And that was the one that Christopher was talking about that had $18 million worth of funds frozen. But that was like, for us, that was a big bit of feedback. A lot of the stuff that we do, we give this information, we're continuously reporting. We wrote to all the charities that we could. We wrote to schools. We wrote to car companies that were doing the conversions on Christopher's cars. We wrote to the designers of the offices, everyone that we had as down as a person of interest. We wrote to them and asked them what their involvement was. And they didn't come back and tell us hardly anything. If all those people that were invested in Goliath Ventures suspected and trust us at the time, we could have made this investigation go a lot faster. We literally have been trying to build a boat inside a bottle. It's just hard work. Anyway, that's okay. That's what we do. But there was another side of this story that I was able to investigate in considerable depth. I could watch how Goliath presented itself while it was happening. I could see Lamborghinis being used as a symbol of success, and it's the same pattern every time. I could examine mansions, the headquarters, the parties, the private travel. I could document the people providing the opportunity and the social circles surrounding them. I could look at their history. I could find a co-conspirator like we did with Nick. And it's only recently that Channel 9 News had actually put out a court document showing that Nick Petrillo has been in front of SEC in the past. We used that document. We looked at everybody, even with Dante. We've been doing a bit of talking about him, and it's only just, we found, I'm just going to show you this because I think you might find this amazing. But this is, I think, is that Dante? Yep. So these are, once we start bringing up this stuff, what else have we got here? But we've found documents, which, I don't want this to be a witch hunt, but we've had people, more documents come out about Dante since we have been looking into him. And what I'm sort of getting at here, guys, is we don't just go through, we research everybody. We go through their companies. We check out their names in PACER. And we can see that these guys haven't had a nice squeaky background. I mean, there was an assault allegation there with Dante, which I can't bring up. But, you sort of see all this stuff and you see a pattern happening all the time. Anyway, let's not get distracted, but that's what we do. And that's why it takes so long to investigate these people. That evidence helps explain something the bank transactions cannot. Why did people believe it? Why did people believe in Goliath? The federal court can show you where the money moved. The interviews and evidence gathered during the investigation show why people are willing to hand that money over in the first place. When those two perspectives are placed together, the Goliath story becomes much cleaner. A luxury lifestyle wasn't proof of financial success simply because it existed. Some assets were heavily financed. Others were purchased without mortgages. Some ultimately produced surprisingly little after secure creditors were paid. And now the United States alleged that the real estate covered by the forfeiture action was purchased with proceeds from wire fraud schemes itself. That creates an uncomfortable, possibly in a center. Oh, I'm not going to read this. Sorry.
That creates an uncomfortable possibility at the center of the entire story. The things that appeared to demonstrate Goliath's success may have been financed by the very money investors believed those things proved Goliath was capable of generating.
Yeah. It's all about what they're going to do in the future, what it's going to become. No one studies the present.
That is the circle I couldn't completely close when this investigation began.
But now the federal investigators are closing parts of it. There are still
questions to answer. Properties have to be sold. Final mortgage balances and expenses have to be calculated. The unresolved cabin drive property remains outside this particular consent motion. Other forfeiture and bankruptcy proceedings continue to matter, and the ultimate amount recovered for victims is still unknown.
So I'm not treating this filing as the end of Goliath's investigation. We've done 88 videos on this investigation, and I'm not sure how many blogs I've done. I see it as something much more useful. It is the point where we can finally start measuring what we discovered against what the financial evidence ultimately revealed. For months, I followed the image, the government followed the money, and now those two investigations are meeting the same record, same court records. And as these properties are eventually sold, I'll be following one number more closely than another. How much money actually comes back? Because after hundreds of millions of dollars were flowed through Goliath Ventures, after the luxury cars, the mansions, the corporate offices, parties, and promises, that's the number the victims deserve to know. And I don't know why, but today it just seems like I feel more emotional than other days. Maybe I need to take some time off. That's the end of the blog. And today I started to realize that some of my blogs are obviously very long. But when I read them and I listen to them, because I'm dyslexic, I don't know, but I listen to every single one of those words and I agree with it, with my hand on my heart. I think it really does describe every section. So look, I'm going to put the link in the chat room. If you're watching the replay, go visit my blog and you'll be able to get to the index and you can go and listen to each section. And the most important thing, I don't know if you realize this, if you want to comment on the blog itself, when you get to the very end, there is a comment box here. I'm obviously logged in, but you can comment on the blog at the bottom. And when you do comment on the blog on the bottom, if I go back to the normal size screen, this is my website, you will see I have a box here and it shows you the comments that people have posted. So it's behind my head. But this section here, now, what's really good about this section, if someone has commented on a previous blog, it turns up on every page of my website. Oh, is that already gone? Oh, no, that must be the new one. Sorry, I lie. I'm going to click on the comments. So if you click on this comment here, you can see that someone has made a comment. And then when you go up to the blog, you can see the blog that they've commented on, which is GG, which is a very good token. And that's Queen of Karma. Game over. GGC, Global Coin, was it Global Gold Coin? now worth $300 a coin, and they're not even on an exchange. It's absolutely batshit crazy. But, check out the blogs, check out the website. Sorry that you have to go through a couple of hoops before it loads, because we are getting a denial server attack at the moment. And the other one is, I'm just going to shut down a few windows before I get going. It's been a great investigation here, and we are always gathering information. If you are on my website, you can click on the Contact Us link, and that will take you to a page where you can actually supply information to me anonymously. I've currently got about 55 emails in my inbox. Often those emails are from people that have lost money to scams. They struggle to find out how to reach out to me. I'm not that hard to do it. I get a lot of, I don't know if it's nice to say, but I get a lot of tire kickers that want to tell me their story but not provide any information. They want to remain anonymous for whatever reason. But I'm here about producing content to help people learn. So if you do want to chat, I do charge to talk to people. You can actually go to my website, and there's all these buttons on the side here where you can have an express chat, sponsor a review if you want to ask me to look at something to see whether it's a scam or not, or you can get a support session where I basically just share intel with you. Another one that we've been doing lately is, if you click on the button at the bottom of the website that says support me and you go to Ko-Fi, there's a new section on Ko-Fi called requests, and request is a more affordable option where you can ask me whether something is a scam. And I do this research anyway. It's not about the money, but I am trying to monetize what I do so I don't have to beg every time I'm on live. When I woke up this morning and somebody had bought me 100 cups of coffee, I shouldn't be asking for more donations, but I've just paid for the flights to go to America. I am going to be in that courtroom. I am going to be sitting in the docks there, listening to the verdict. It's meant to be a 3-hour session. I want to hear what the judge is going to say. I wouldn't miss it for my life. So let's go there. I will have a lot of Avengers there with me, and you may not recognize me. They may not be sitting around me, but I will be there dressed in a nice tie, or maybe not a tie, maybe a nice shirt, looking very inconspicuous. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I don't want to cause any scene or any havoc. But look, that's what we're doing at the moment. The other one, while I've got my website there, I've got an amazing investigation that obviously I talked about earlier on. I've just finished with global glamping. It's now turned into 37 different sections. It's a bit of closure for a lot of people that have lost money to this scam. This scam was probably around about $5 million from what I can tell. But we've done a pretty in-depth investigation, and these take me hours to do. Once again, when I read through this information, I'm so proud of the investigations that we can do. We're a team of Avengers. And as I said this morning, I woke up talking to a lady who has got who got told at one stage of her life she's got 12 months to live. And now she's started up a charity 20 years later. She said she thought that she was not going to live. She started up a charity. The charity have put together money. She invested it in a to get a book written to create awareness. She's managed to get government funding for her sickness. And then she's got scammed by people running a book publishing scam. And, I wake up to those sort of stories. They actually, they are exhausting. They take a toll. I'm up for the challenge. I've got amazing people who help me. We're all tired, perplexed. We feel like we're not listened to. We feel like a lot of our research is thrown into the wind. But we are here for victims. We might have a bit of a laugh. You might see me yelling down the microphone at somebody some days, but we really are trying to actually do something. And I do believe we are making a difference. So it's not just me. Don't let money determine who you are. Don't let the loss of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, define who you are. These guys like Christopher Delgado, they are calculated fraudsters. They know what they're doing. They know that they were living on a limited time. Now he's going to throw away his life. He's going to ruin his children's life to a degree. His ex-wife's even coming to terms with letting her house go. They might have to go back and live in the trailer park. You can find happiness in relationships. Find people you can trust. Spend time listening to people. You know, I will always take a phone call from anybody who wants to talk to me. But some of the people that I'm fighting the battles will have larger budgets than I don't have the time to spend with everybody I want to. But I'm always here for the person that needs a helping hand, some direction, or have been through, you know, a horrible experience, been totally deceived by a fraudster or a scammer, and haven't received what they thought they were going to get, or even what they hoped they were going to get. It's just not good. Look, that's 3 hours and 24 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. Hopefully you got some value out of knowing what happened to the houses today. Thank you to everyone that's given me these amazing donations as we've been going through this ordeal. Feel free to join the YouTube channel if you want. Support me via my website was much appreciated. And I know a lot of people are silent and they're watching this at home, hoping, maybe hanging on to hope. Hope I've given you some closure. Hope I've helped you when you are listening to somebody else who might be presenting an opportunity that sounds too good to be true. I'm Danny DeHeck, and we are the Avengers. We'll see you guys in the next video. Have a lovely evening, night. Get some sleep.
Pull up to the mansion, gates open wide. $8 million sitting polished inside. Lamborghini screaming down an Orlando road. Everybody watching thought they cracked the code. Private flights, bright lights, another VIP. Downtown headquarters dressed in luxury. If the man with your money lives better than kings, you stop asking questions about how much it brings. They weren't selling numbers, they were selling the view. Selling what a rich man's life could look like for you. And every new investor looking in from below saw all of that money and thought he must know. But a photograph doesn't show you the dead, and a supercar doesn't tell you who's paid yet. When the music stops and the court doors close, there's only one question everybody wants to know. Where did the money go? Past the mansion gates and the private show, the cars look rich, the offices glow. But where did the money go? Where did the money go? 328 million through the flow. Strip off the lifestyle, follow what they owe. Tell the victims, where did the money go? Then the federal papers landed on the desk, and suddenly the picture didn't look its best. Mortgage on the Phelps house, 2 million deep. More debts behind the properties they couldn't keep. Taxes at Isleworth waiting to be paid. Association bills underneath the charade. The headquarters bought with no mortgage at all. Now the government wants to put a price on the walls. And that Lamborghini everybody knew, 625 when the bidding was through. But after secured interest took what they were owed, $20,000 was the government load. That's the difference between the price and the truth, between looking successful and showing the proof. Take away the cameras, the parties, the show, and we're back to the question everybody wants to know. Where did the money go? Past the mansion gates and the private show. The cars look rich, the offices glow. But where did the money go? Where did the money go? 328 million through the flow. Strip off the lifestyle, follow what they owe. Tell the victims, where did the money go? He talked about perception, he understood the game. Where you live, what you drive, Who remembers your name? Fly private, look wealthy, let the image speak. Make success look obvious before investors peek. Welcome to the cool kids, everybody's inside. Money meets status and status becomes pride. When your wealthy friends are already in the room, due diligence gets quieter underneath the perfume. But luxury is an evidence that profits are real. A mansion doesn't tell you how investors will feel when withdrawals stop coming and the promises fold, and everything that glittered has to finally be sold. I can see the cars, I can see the homes, I can see the parties, the expensive clothes. I can follow the companies, I could question the show, but I couldn't see the bank accounts or everywhere the money would go. And the government followed what nobody could see. Behind every symbol was a financial reality. And now those trophies of success are being priced and sold. But does that explain $328 million? Where did the money go? Past the mansion gates and the private show. Lamborghini dreams on an investor's dough. Where did the money go? Where did the money go? Sell the houses, count what's sold, pay the banks and clear the road, then tell the victims what is left when every luxury has been sold. Where did the luxury has been sold? Behind the cars, behind the homes, behind the pictures on the wall. 328 million reasons not to let this story go. So follow every dollar until somebody can answer. Where did the money go? The mansion was real, the Lamborghini was real, the headquarters was real, but none of them proved the profits were real. And somewhere behind all that lifestyle is the money trail.